Not any Friday night. It is homecoming Friday night, and there is no school spirit like Queen's school spirit. Today, it's the annual homecoming game between Queens and McGill, right here on TSN. Live from Kingston, this is Queens Homecoming. It's the undefeated Queens Golden Gaels against the Redmen of McGill. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Richardson Stadium in Kingston. I'm Michael Landsberg. Welcome to one of the oldest rivalries in sport in North America. How old is it? Well, in 1898, these two schools first started playing against each other. The first game saw McGill defeat Queens by a score of 25-2, but since then, Queens has dominated the series. This is the 159th renewal. We're glad you're with us. We'll do 14 games on our TSN schedule this year, but I think this one game, more than any other, will give you a feeling for what college football is all about and should be all about. This stadium seats about 11,000. They expect more than 13,000 here today. How they'll get them in, we're not quite sure. We do expect an outstandingly exciting football game with all kinds of ambience. We're glad you're with us today. And it is more significant in terms of this renewal, this homecoming, than it is in terms of the playoffs. This is the final week of the regular season in the O-Q, but the playoff matchups basically have been decided. We expect that next week, McGill will take on Queens one more time. It has not yet been finalized, but almost for sure. And the other matchup will likely see Concordia take on Ottawa. So this game is exciting and thrilling, mostly because of the crowd that's here and the energy that will be generated by it. We welcome our color commentator, Jamie Bone. Like myself, this is your first Queens homecoming.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it as well, because we got the crowd, we got the band, we got a great atmosphere here. I'm really going to have fun today, and I know everybody at Queens is going to have a great time as well.
The big question is how you and I are going to make it up through the stands. We'll address that in a moment. Let's talk about Queens, and they really do have a good-looking football team.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody's been talking about their offense. We know number 3, Jock Climby, set a new CIAU record last year for pass receiving. Also, their quarterback, Tim Prendergast. But the real key to this team this year has been their defense, with the outstanding play of number 33, linebacker Mike Moon, leading the team in tackles. And you can't forget about the freshman, number 56, Gavin Higgs, out of London, Ontario. 6 sacks. He's playing outstanding this year. The Queens defense has really surprised a lot of people.
One of the things that Queens has had to overcome is a lack of size. They are very, very small defensively, and we turned to their defensive coordinator, Bob Mullen, and we asked him how it was they made up for their lack of size.
Well, we're very much a pressure-oriented, blitzing-type defense. We're probably, other than Carleton, the smallest team in the conference. And while we're not big, we have people that are quick. We have guys that are very much students of the game and allow us to do a whole lot of things that I don't think otherwise we could do. So we'll blitz probably 70 to 75% of the time, which really puts a premium on our man coverage. We play man a lot, and our cornerbacks have really been holding up well, and I think have been the difference for us this season.
On the other hand, there's the McGill Redmen. A couple of weeks ago, we didn't think that they were going anywhere, but all of a sudden they've turned it on, and one of the areas that they appear to be pretty strong is quarterback.
Well, absolutely. I think the last 2 weeks, as you say, Michael, they came back and they beat Bishop twice in a row. That puts them right now at 3-3. They want to win this game to make them 4-3 going into next week's playoff and a winning season. But the real big story has to be the quarterbacking situation. They had Brian Fuller for years. They took him to a Vanier Cup in '87, but he's been replaced by Yannick Prefontaine, who last week threw for 322 yards. But they also have 2 other quarterbacks there as well. Andy St. Louis, who's a second-year player, and also the freshman Justin Raymond. So I think we're going to be able to see 3 of those quarterbacks play today.
This is a period of transition to some extent from McGill. They lost 2 of their coordinators, Larry Ring and Pat Sheehan, to the program at Concordia, and we asked Charlie Bailey how it has been adapting to that loss.
Well, certainly we miss Larry and Pat. They're two great coaches, two fine guys, and we enjoyed having them with us at McGill for the 5 years. It's been transition, definitely. Fortunately, I got a very competent coach in Ray Lalonde as our offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. He's done a terrific job for us, and we were able to promote Mike Morovich to a coordinator's job, and he's done really very fine. I'm really pleased with his performance today as a coach, and it's been tough. It's an adjustment period. We have to learn there's a lot of organization development within the coaching staff that takes place when you have a big change like that.
So it's Queens and McGill today, and it likely next week will be Queens and McGill one more time. What do you think these two teams are thinking? Do you not want to show the other guys all of your tricks or what?
I don't think you can play that way, to be honest with you. I think, first of all, McGill want to have a winning season, come into the playoffs winning 3 games in a row. And for Queens, this could be Doug Hargreaves' 100th victory if they win here today. And what better way for Doug Hargreaves and the Queens Golden Gaels to win his 100th victory at homecoming?
You know, there's a huge crowd here. We're going to have to make our way up through the stands. There's talk that they'd like to pass you up, actually, through the stands. What do you think?
I'm not so sure if my bald body can take it anymore, Michael. I think they better pass you up.
Stay with us. We'll get up there somehow, and we'll be back with the opening kickoff in this, one of the oldest rivalries in sport, Queens versus McGill. Stay with us. Well, we can tell you we made it up here into our broadcast location rather uneventfully, and we are set to go. It's the McGill Redmen against the Queens Golden Gaels. These teams will likely meet next week in the first round of the playoffs. Jamie Galloway will kick it off for Queens. They will go right to left on your screen. It'll be Steve Papp and Wally Sordo back for the McGill Redmen. Galloway gets into it, and we are underway. Sordo will start us at the 7-yard line. And Wally Sordo only out over the 20 to the 22-yard line. A spirited Queens kick coverage limits McGill to not much on the return as you watch Yanni Prefontaine hustle onto the field. Prefontaine doesn't have the best numbers. He's completed only 44.5% of his passes, but he's been able to throw the deep ball, and he's been able to get some protection because of this big, strong offensive line. Belanger's probably their best at 6'6", 285 pounds. Prefontaine is the quarterback, and he will have Mark Tifo and Wally Sordo behind him. You may wonder, where is Jerry Eiffel? He's injured. He should be able to play next week. He will not play today. And the first carry of the game is Mark Tifo, but he is tracked down very quickly, and his gain maybe only 2 as we look more at this McGill offense, and they are very explosive from the receiver position. Christian Massotti starts at slot back. He's number 75. He was a wide receiver last week where he caught touchdown passes in the fourth quarter of 66 and 70 yards. Bayerjean had a 100-yarder. So these guys have not caught a lot of passes, but they can go deep, and they are a most interesting offense to watch. Second down and 9. Prefontaine has a man open, but it is just over the fingertips of Courtney Shrimpton. Jamie Prefontaine rolled up and bought himself some time.
Well, actually, you can tell what McGill want to do today. They want to get back and give Prefontaine some time to throw the football because they know that Queens' defense is going to come after him with a lot of heat today. And he made a nice move, actually, to escape that sack and almost hit Courtney Shrimpton downfield for a big play. It would have been just, unfortunately, just out of his reach. Right
away, you could see what Bob Mullen was talking about, blitzing, stunting offense. They came with a number of players. They got good pressure on Prefontaine, but he's able to dodge it. Chuck Pettipaw will kick it away. He leads the OQ in punting. His average is 39.2. He's a fine place kicker as well. And Pettipaw hits kind of a short one. Steve Jovetic waits for it and picks it up at the 47, and Jovetic brings it inside the 45 to the 41-yard line where the Queens offense will begin. Outstanding field position as you look at Tim Pendergrass bring his team onto the field. Pendergrass starting for the first time this year and having a fine season. 11 touchdown passes. That's just 2 away from the OQ record. And here's his offensive line. Bernie McDonald is their best pass blocker. He mans the left offensive tackle position. Watch Ron Herman. We'll try to keep an eye on him. They say he is a Mike Shadd type of athlete. Now, everybody around here gets compared to Mike Shadd, but they say he has great numbers, and he was converted from defense to offense. As you look at Paul Beresford, plenty of running room for Beresford. Down to the 26-yard line, and he has a first down. And Jamie, running is something this Queens offense hasn't done very well.
No, that's right, but Beresford is their best ball carrier. He's had 354 yards this year. They just run straight. Lead-off tackle, they try to kick out with number 32, Doug Corbett. Boy, a hole opens wide open for Beresford.
Already you can see difference between these two teams. Queens appears to be ready to play football. McGill maybe just a little bit flat. 1st and 10 from the 27. Here's Beresford again with plenty of running. He has a huge hole to the right side. Gain isn't quite as good, but he picked up 6 easy yards. It'll be 2nd down and 4 as you look at the rest of the Queens offense. The quarterback, Pendergrass, Corbett, and Beresford. Corbett more of a blocking fullback than anything else. They'd like to run the ball better than they have this year. Jock Climbey, simply as good an athlete as there has ever been to play receiver in this country. His numbers are not as good as they were last year because the Queens offense is a little bit better. More bounce, more other talented receivers. He has still caught 31 passes for 6 touchdowns. 2nd down and 4. Pendergrass throws, and he has it's Matt Angus going down on his knees, and one official says yes, the other says no, and no is the verdict.
Well, McGill like to play a little bit of man coverage here, and Prendergast gets back, and little play-action pass. They've been running the ball pretty effectively. He tries to get outside, and we're going to see almost, but not quite, a reception there. It was actually a good call by the official. But nevertheless, that puts Queens in great field position right now. And number 22, Galloway, has kicked 13 of 18 field goals this year. So in this range, this is basically a gimme for Queens.
He has a strong leg. He was a rugby kicker. He kicked for the rugby team last year, joined the team after the rugby season. And here he may have to put his rugby skills to the work. And he throws one good block and over the head of Paul Beresford. So Queens misses an outstanding opportunity to get some points.
Well, maybe I jinxed him. I said this is going to be a gimme for Galloway. He actually threw a heck of a block there when they muffed the attempt, but unfortunately for Queens, going down, establishing the running game, they come up with no points here at all.
Here's the way Queens lines up defensively. They play basically a 52 defense. The 2 defensive ends are stand-up ends. They blitz all the time, and they are good along the defensive line, albeit small. The linebackers, just 2 of them, Mike Boone and Dan Palou, are very active, and very often they'll blitz 7 men and put some pressure on their secondary, which they are very proud of. They feel as though they can cover man-to-man. Just 2 plays from McGill offensively, and their 3rd play isn't much better than the first 2. Only a gain of 2. It'll be 2nd down and 8. We took a look at the Queens secondary. Randy Zarickney, one of the best corners in this conference, one of the best in the country. They'll stay away from him, and that puts a lot of pressure on Chris McCormick, number 14 on the other side. And McCormick, I think, Jamie, feels the pressure because Zarickney's so good.
Well, it's interesting. We've talked about this before, how Zarickney is so good. They're going to go over to McCormick's side. But eventually, throwing enough to McCormick, he's going to have his fair share of interceptions. And then when next year and people start looking at the stats, they're going to say, hey, we better stay away from this McCormick guy because he's got all the great stats, all the INTs. And he gets a little bit of a reputation, but you're right, it's a tough, tough job. And you know you've got a great guy on one side because you know they're going to be coming over to your side.
McCormick lines up on his right side, and he faces Luke Tifo. 2nd down and 8. Prefontaine, he's got Sordo open, but he has to wait for the ball, and it's knocked away. Mike Boone, the linebacker, came about 40 yards downfield to knock it away, and Sordo was open for a time, but the ball just took too long to get there.
Well, we talk about Gavin Higgs and how important he is in Queens schemes. It's number 56. He gets right in Prefontaine's face. But the ball is laid up a little bit too long there. As you say, Mike Boone is downfield, and Wally Sordo does not like to catch those kind of passes where he has to wait for them. He'd like to be moving down the field as opposed to having to come back for them.
Is that a case of a quarterback maybe overestimating his arm strength?
I think, well, he was throwing off his back foot because of the pressure that he had from Gavin Higgs.
Here's Petipaw's 2nd kick, and it's better than the first. It's a high kick. And Steve Jovicic is forced to go out of bounds, so this one works out a bit better for McGill. Queens once again will scrimmage from good field position, this time from the 53-yard line, and it's up to the McGill defense to rise again. And here's the way their defense looks. They play more of a traditional 43-type defense. 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, Beaudry, Webb, Kerr having another great year. He hurt his knee last year in a game we did, but he has 8 quarterback sacks to lead the conference. Hagan Menard, a good blitzing linebacker, along with Carlisle and Welch. Queens at the 53-yard line. Pendergrass throws, and he's got Matt Angus this time. Excuse me, he's got Jock Climbey this time, and Climbey goes out of bounds. And we expect to see Climbey working against Chambers quite often today.
Well, this is what Queens loves to do, run play action pass, get Tim Prendergast outside, and they run Climby, and they're man covered. They just run him down on a little sideline and out. Makes a great reception and makes it look easy.
Did he impress you with his arm strength throwing on the run there?
Actually, especially throwing to his left. I mean, that's more difficult for a right-handed quarterback to throw to his left.
Climby's lined up to the right, and that's where they're going again. Jock Climby, but this one's underthrown as he broke back to the ball. But to his credit, Paul Chambers was right with him, and it seems like this McGill secondary is going to try to match up Jock Climby with Chambers, because on the play before, Climby lined up on the left and Chambers was there. That time he was on the right and was there as well.
Well, I'm sure McGill thinks that they're going to have to put one guy on him, and they feel that Paul Chambers is, in fact, their best defensive back, and he's going to mirror Climby all over the field. I don't know if I'd want that job if I was Chambers. I mean, it's a heck of a challenge for him. We're going to see how he's going to be able to handle it today.
This time Climby winds up line to the left. Chambers is there again. They fake the draw. They've got Climby. He's open deep, and Climby has it for the touchdown. Outstanding pass by Tim Prendergast.
Well, man coverage here. We just got through saying Paul Chambers, man on man on Jock Climby, and Prendergast was back in a semi-roll, and he just knows he's throwing the Climby all the way, and that was a great over-the-shoulder catch, and a really nice control of his body as well, making sure that he shoves off the tackle. But a very nice reception and way to keep his feet and get in the end zone. He gives something for the Queens fans here at homecoming to cheer about right off the bat.
38 yards for the score. Climby, what a fluid, good-looking receiver he is. That is his 7th touchdown reception of the year. And Galloway makes it 7-0, and they are singing here at Queens University. They are singing because their team leads 7-0, and this is homecoming. This city is here and talking about football. It's been that way since last night when we drove into the city about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It's kind of quiet. It got noisier and noisier and more excited, and now they are here for the renewal of the annual Queens-McGill game. They played the first in 1898. You did not see that one, I gather.
I think my great-grandfather was at that game, Michael. I mean, there really is nothing like homecoming at a lot of the schools. I mean, it brings a lot of the alumni back, obviously, and a lot of the students really get into the festivities as well. As we take a look at the student side, and they're still filtering in here, and we're well into the first quarter.
Wally Sordo from his goal line. And Sordo breaks one tackle and brings it up to the 20-yard line, where McGill is under some pressure right now. They have not started this football game well. They are playing in a tough place to win, and you go into the game knowing that. So I think McGill's under pressure to do something.
Well, I think it's also tough for them as well, because they know they have to come back here, or possibly they have to come back here again next week and play Queens. And I don't think that they are really going to show us a lot of little wrinkles that they might have in their offense today. Granted, they're going to play hard. They want to win this football game, but they're not going to show you everything that they have in their arsenal.
First and 10, they've only run 4 plays, no completions, and they are still at the no completion mark. Christian Masadi tried to reach back and grab it, but he couldn't.
Well, Charlie Bailey was telling me before the game today that they were going to come out here and try to throw the short pass because of the type of defense that Queens plays, the blitzing style of defense. And we see that they're trying to take Courtney Shrimpton down, just turn him around and throw him the quick hook.
So it's 2nd down and 10. Again, they have run 2 plays in a punt in both of their possessions, and they're in danger of doing that right now. Queens has had outstanding field position twice, and they had the 1 score. An excellent pass rush that time from Dan Palou, I believe it was, or was it Matt Clifford? Yes, number 60, Matt Clifford, a quick pass rusher who is still looking for his first sack of the year. That's hard as it is to believe. He is very quick and a dominant force, but hasn't yet got a sack, and he was very close on this one.
Well, we can't quite see it here on our screen, but Matt Clifford is going to go outside, and Gavin Higgs comes inside. The stunt on it, they have a little bit of a twist, and Matt Clifford does a nice job of getting to the quarterback, Prefontaine.
So McGill looks very flat. Queens, anything but. Pettipaw from inside his 10. His 3rd punt from about that location. Queens comes with a rush, and they almost block it. They do get a piece of it. Pettipaw hustles down, but it doesn't matter. Now a penalty comes down. I'm not sure whether that's no yards or whether, well, we'll find out.
Well, Queens really loaded up, and they come after Pettipaw here. One of the best kickers, by the way, in the O-QIFC.
Dave Burley got his right hand on it.
Now, as long as he gets his hand on it, he can, in fact, knock the kicker down at that time.
That's exactly what happened. He got his right hand on it. There was no roughing the kicker call. The call is whether there's no yards or not. Charlie Bailey certainly hopes not. And McGill's going to get the ball. McGill is going to get the football. And we leave it up to our color commentator, Jamie Bone, to explain why.
Well, I thought the referee was going to tell us why there for a second, but obviously not. I guess he's explaining it to the Queens players. You can see in the middle of your screen, giving them a long explanation. It doesn't really matter what explanation he gives Jock Climby. When Climby comes over to Doug Hargreaves, he's not going to like it or believe it. But nevertheless, it's McGill's football.
And the only thing I can think of was, did a Queens player touch the football and cause a fumble? There was a number of players who fell on it there. A Queens guy was trying to get the no yards call. Maybe he lost control. So a break for McGill, and boy, did they ever need it. 7:47 to play in the first quarter. They trail up 7-0. They've gotten 2 yards on 3 possessions. They swing it out of the backfield, and they're going to get nothing there. And there's a play where whether they completed it or not really is irrelevant. Mark Tifo was covered by 3 men.
Well, Queens have really done a nice job in scouting McGill. Now, one of the problems that McGill has right at this time in the football game is there's a little bit of rain right now, and plus a very strong breeze blowing right into their faces, so they are really going against the wind. That's probably why we have not seen them try to throw the ball downfield deep. Now, we did see one where they tried to throw it to Wally Sordo, but the ball kind of hung up. They caught in the wind there a little bit. So they're trying to execute the short passing game, but I am surprised that they haven't tried to run the ball at all.
2nd down and 10. You wouldn't think this would be the time. Prefontaine still looking for his first completion. He's 0 for 4. And now he is 0 for 5, very nearly with an interception. Zarickny right on his man. And number 24, Steve Byers on. So McGill will kick it away again, and they just have not done anything. Queens seems to be in their huddle. Each time Prefontaine has looked for a receiver, he's been well covered.
Well, I'm surprised, I say, that they haven't really gone to a little bit more of the running game because of the type of backs that they do have. Now, granted, Jerry Eiffel is not playing today, and Mark Tifo is filling in for him, number 23 for McGill. But they also have a great running back in Wally Sordo, who was a little bit in the shadow, obviously, of Mike Soles and Jerry Eiffel the last few years. But he's an outstanding running back.
Here comes the rush. Queens goes after Pettipaw, and they miss it. And this is a high kick that starts to blow back. As Steve Jovetic fielded it at the 45, brought it out to the 50-yard line. So Queens is not really hurt by the fumble. They'll begin from their own 50 with a 7-0 lead when we return. The annual Queens homecoming, as you look at the alumni side, very different in terms of spirit and noise.
Well, do you notice that they separate the crowd here in Kingston, and most universities do that in Canada. They have the student section on one side, and they have the alumni section on the other, and I guess they feel that it's in the best interest of both parties to keep them separated.
The alumni don't want to sit with the students.
I think that's right, Michael.
Don't want to sit with the alumni. 1st and 10, Pendergast pitches it out to Beresford. There's just nobody over there. Beresford gets met by a McGill defender 25 yards downfield. Easy.
Well, I'm impressed with this Queens offense, how they can run the football. I know we've been talking about how well they throw it, but they're just running pitch action here. They just lead out with the fullback. And Beresford does a nice job. Really nice job. There's just no contain out there from McGill at all, and Beresford has a free rein going around the end.
You see the lead blocker, Doug Corbett. He was looking for somebody to block. Nobody there. Is that a bad defense by McGill? Clearly, they weren't lined up properly.
Well, the element wasn't there, the contained responsibility. Somebody obviously got hooked inside.
Pendergast looks for Climby. Climby goes deep. The ball is a bit underthrown, but there's Jock Climby again. What a terrific receiver. 2 touchdown receptions for Jock Climby, and Queens leads 13-0.
Well, Jock Climby is just a superb athlete, and everybody on national television is getting a chance to see what kind of an athlete Jock Climby really is. Pendergast just goes right back. It's just a straight streak or right down the field, but he makes a nice job here of protecting the ball with his body. And actually, that could have been called a pass interference because Chambers had his hand in there around his arm. But that shows you the strength of Climby as well and the concentration. He's a great athlete.
They had double coverage. Linklater came over to help out Chambers, but Linklater was too late. Chambers was running him 3 steps behind him, and even a pass a little bit underthrown couldn't help him out. Jock Climby, when he completes his career, will either be the second leading receiver in the history of CIAU football or number one, depending on whether he plays next year. Right now, he started today's game 5th on the all-time list. He was just 24 yards behind Joe Nastasiak, so he is clearly in 4th. He was just 45 yards behind Kevin Sawatsky. He's passed him, so he has vaulted up to 3rd. To move to 2nd, he needed 135 yards. Mark Maggie of the U of T Blues between 77 and 81 was number 2. So Climbey may be number 2 before we are 1/2 old.
Well, everybody was amazed at him last year. I mean, he had 1,092 yards in receptions, or excuse me, 91 yards in receptions last year, and broke a record held by one great receiver that played with the University of Alberta named Brian Fryer, who ended up playing with the Washington Redskins for a few years.
Here's Wally Sordo. He's returned 3 kicks, none very well. This time he's got some room, and let's see if this gives McGill some life. They need resuscitation because they are really in great difficulty right now. This is the second game of this OQ weekend. There was a game last week, and it was not significant in the standings. We can tell you that the home team won this one. It was Ottawa home to Bishops. Bishops loses its 3rd straight football game. Final score was 35. That's 35 for Ottawa and 24 for Bishops. So Ottawa will either stay number 8 or maybe even move up. And here's the way the standings look. Queens will finish 1st. Ottawa will finish 2nd. The question is, if Carleton can beat Concordia, which is most unlikely today, and if Queens can win, or excuse me, if McGill could win, then they would finish 3rd. But if this play is any indication, or the previous 7 that they have run, they aren't going to win today. McGill looks very flat. And not only did they lose a couple, but they'll be charged with illegal procedure. Queens will decline it. It'll be 2nd down and 12 or 13.
Well, you know, great defenses can always make an offense look flat sometimes, and maybe that's what we're seeing here today. I saw Queens play earlier this year in an exhibition game against the University of Toronto, and that was a game that they won, actually, in the last 4 seconds of that game, when Ed Kidd threw a touchdown pass. But this is a different Queens team that I'm seeing here.
Andy St. Louis is in a quarterback. He's only thrown 9 passes this year, 5 for 9. Interestingly, St. Louis has certainly had excitement with all of his passes. 5 completions, 3 of them have been intercepted, and 2 of them have been touchdowns.
Well, something happens when he puts the ball in the air. There's no doubt about that.
2nd down and about 10 as Queens refuses the penalty. Little early movement, no penalty down. And St. Louis almost has something happen again, and that would have been an interception by Dan Palou, who was right with Mark Tifo. I have not seen McGill even come close to getting a guy open. Wally Sordo was open downfield, but they couldn't get the ball to him. And other than that, they have been very well covered.
Well, that's right. Queens is doing a great job on that, because you're right. There's nobody open. I mean, it looks like they're open a little bit, but the linebackers doing a nice job of picking up the running backs. Not a lot of people downfield.
They go on the fast snap. Pettipaw gets the kick away and doesn't get much of a bounce. And Jovetic picks it up and brings it out to the 50-yard line. Penalty down. Queens may have been offside. That's my first instinct, is to say that Queens was offside, but it would be wrong. It is a legal procedure against McGill. I think Queens will probably refuse it because the net on the punt is only 18 yards. And Jock Climbey trots onto the field. He's already got 2 touchdowns, and they'll go for more when we return. The Queens team is one of the difficult ones to assess. Clearly for us it's difficult because we haven't seen them, but they're undefeated, ranked number 4, but we haven't really had an idea how good they can be, and I think a lot of people across the country are sort of looking at them as the intangible.
I think you're right, Michael. Obviously their defense is playing very, very well. I think everybody knew about Jock Climbey and the type of receiver he was, but everybody thought that they were just a one-dimensional type of offense where they just threw the ball to Climbey, but they're showing us today they can run the football.
Gain of 5 for Beresford, and football is never easy, but sometimes it looks easy, and it looks very easy right now for Queens. When you think of Beresford's runs, he got 24 yards on a carry that nobody touched until he was 20 yards downfield. Climbey has been open deep, and Pendergast, as you can see, has 2 touchdowns at 85 yards on those 2 long receptions by Jock Climbey. Actually, he's caught all 3 passes, Climbey has.
Well, if you take a look at McGill, I mean, traditionally, throughout this year, they have not been big scorers in the first quarter. In their first 6 games, they've only scored 12 points total in the first quarter. Now, take a look at the fourth quarter. They scored 57 points in the fourth quarter. So they seem to be a team that gets stronger and stronger as the game goes on. But the other bad stat, if you want to take a look at McGill, is that they usually have more points scored against them in the fourth quarter as well, so that might not be very good. But in terms of their offense, they're not playing well in the first quarter now. They're going to have to get something established, but this actually could turn into be a rout.
You also watch their best defensive player, Paul Kerr, with 8 sacks, helped off the field, so that's not going to help. Flamey's wide to the left this time, and he breaks off his pattern, but they go deep to another receiver, Reed McGrewer, but the ball's overthrown, and for the first time, McGill can say, hey, we had them all covered.
Well, you have to take anything positive from small little victories, and the thing that's really hurt McGill at this point in the football game has been their inability to really establish that short passing game, which they wanted to establish right off the bat. And secondly, field position has really killed them, and the wind in their face. And they have 3 things against them right now. I'm sure they're looking to get the ball in the second quarter with the wind, and maybe they can get something established.
Jock Flamey's the punter. McGill has blocked 6 kicks this year. Queens has a lot of trouble on their third down snap, so let's see if McGill goes after it. Bob Linklater has blocked a couple already, 3 this year. They don't get that close to Flamey, and he kicks it to Luke Tifo. Queens has good coverage, and Tifo only out to the 22-yard line, so once again, McGill forced to start very deep from their own territory. Mike Ross is the third down snapper, and things have been very... Well, they say that Jock Flamey has proven that he might be able to play shortstop for a major league team.
Well, if any guy you want back there fielding that's the guy you'd want, because not only can he run, I mean, he can get great hands in fielding the ball, but boy, he can run with it. That would scare me having him back there as a kicker.
It would scare you having their snapper as well. First and 10. Finally, some running room and a beautiful move by the McGill running back. That was certainly their best play of the day. Mark Tifo, a great shift on one of the linebackers, picks up 16 or 17.
Well, he didn't get to play much because of Jerry Eiffel. He's been in his shadow a little bit. But they get the ball deep in the back, and he's got nice little moves here. Gets outside. Does a great job of keeping his balance and getting something established in McGill, because it's so important for them to get something going at this time. They have to keep the ball away from Queens.
Super move on Mike Burley, and it's a first down for McGill. They're first with 2:27 to play in the first quarter, and a 14-0 lead for Queens. That's Christian Massotti in motion, likely their best receiver. He lines up in the slot to the left, but it's Wally Sordo up the middle, and Queens appears to be ready for that play. Only a gain of a handful, 2 or 3. It'll be second down and 7. That wasn't Sordo, excuse me. That was Mike Zinga, who has replaced Wally Sordo.
Well, I'm sure McGill's thinking is right now that teams sometimes that do a lot of stunning, they blitz a lot, they play a lot of people up in the line of scrimmage, they can get caught sometimes if you had the right call on it. If you pop it through the line and you threw about 3 or 4 yards, you can go for a big, big game, because all the secondary people, the defensive backs, are playing man coverage, so they're not looking into the backfield.
This time Massotti lines up to the right, and they run it on second down and 6, and they aren't going to get the first down. Outstanding pursuit, and the play was really disrupted by Dave Burley in the backfield. He didn't make the tackle, but Burley was there to force the play even further outside, and gains only a couple, so McGill will kick it away once again.
Well, in all defenses, you have to have contained responsibility, and Dave Burley does a nice job of coming up, and, or excuse me, that's Mike Burley, and then they just string it out and wait for all the other folks to come in to make the play.
So McGill now with only 1 first down and no points, and they'll give it right back to Queens. Petipaw's average. This is the first quarter and his 6th punt, and like the previous 5, it's not a good one. Here's Jovetic with a chance for a return, and Jovetic brings it out to the 45-yard line. And this will tell you what kind of field position Queens has had. They start from the 45 this time, and that is the furthest that they have been back in their own zone.
Well, if you're a coach, you don't like to see your punter out there at all, let alone 6 times in the first quarter. I mean, that obviously shows you that you're not doing a very good job on offense at this point in the ballgame.
The game we did last week with St. Mary's, their punter, I don't think kicked in the first half.
I think he only kicked it once the whole game, if I'm not mistaken.
45-yard line is where Beresford gets started, and Beresford's going nowhere. Underneath all of that was number 40, Hagen Minard, who reached up and grabbed Beresford and limited his gain to basically nothing. Doug Hargreaves isn't quite sure about this year's team. says, you know, we're not great. We don't have great personnel. Now, a lot of coaches really lament about that and try to downplay their success, but I believe it. I think in his case, he's correct. He says we have some good players. We have no depth, and we get an injury to any of our starters, we're in trouble. Second down and 10, and they're going to get a first down. Doug Corbett with a 25-yard gain. I think that's his longest of the year.
Yes, his longest prior to that was only 21 yards. Queens just run the trap here. Boom, and they hit it to perfection. And when he gets moving up the field, Corbett, he's just going straight for that goal line. I mean, he was very close to breaking it, but that's the trap. Now, we talked earlier, I know, with Doug Hargreaves, and he was kidding me a little bit because you were saying, well, Jamie says that you guys run Western's offense. He says, hey, hold it. I think Western runs Queens' offense, and I would have to concede that. I know Larry Haler and Doug Hargreaves were together at Dalhousie University back in the early 1970s.
Bob Linklater had an outstanding opportunity there to get McGill back in the football game. The first quarter ends, and that could have been disastrous for Pendergast. Watch this pass. Linklater has a lot of open field in front of him.
I'm not quite sure who Pendergast is throwing to. It seems to get out of his hand a little bit. But, yeah, you don't have those opportunities come by very often. And it looked like Bob Linklater was a little bit surprised.
He wasn't even close to getting it. One quarter is done, 14-0. Homecoming at Queens. Some of the capacity crowd, which is not yet at capacity, they're letting the fans in very slowly, checking each and every one of them, but those that are here are enjoying what they're seeing. 14-0 for Queens, 2nd and 10. Last time they got a first down. This time they come up above a yard short, and Doug Hargreaves will be faced with his first down, or his first decision on 3rd down. It'll be 3rd and 1.
Well, I'm very impressed with Queens' running game right now. I know that they haven't really relied on it much this year, but they want to establish it right now because they feel that if the conditions deteriorate through the playoffs in November, early November, late October, and you can't throw the ball effectively, you have to have that ground game, and you have to establish it. And they're trying to do that and work on it today, and with great success, I might add.
If McGill's got a big defensive play in them, they should bring it out right now. 3rd down and 1. They trail it 14-0, fumble, and it doesn't matter because they're short of the first down. There was outstanding Paul Kerr in the backfield to make that play. What a big play that is for McGill.
Well, they're trying to go off tackle here, and there seems to be a little bit of problem with the exchange, and the reason the problem is that Paul Kerr gets in there, just slanting there, and puts his hand right in the stomach with the running back.
He was there as the quarterback was giving it to the running back. Tremendous penetration. Graham Webb picks up the fumble, and McGill has some life. Well, let's see who's in the quarterback. They spin the big wheel, and it comes up Andy St. Louis. We'd love to see their 3rd-string quarterback, Justin Raymond. It is Andy St. Louis faking. Here's the pressure from the backside. He lays it out for the receiver, and there's some jostling downfield. Randy Zarickny running stride for stride with Steve Byers-Jean, but well covered.
Oh, that's nice coverage by Zarickny, and the nice thing that he did is he's playing in man coverage. He's with him all the way, but he makes sure that he doesn't interfere with him. He's not going to put his hands up. He's not going to face guard him. He's not going to do any of that. He's just going to ride the receiver off of the ball. You know, Doug Hargreaves has a tendency, I think, and I know Doug from years back, but to really downplay his team. He said that he felt that they were a 3-4 team where they would win 3 games, lose 4, and if they made the playoffs, fine. But look at his team today. They are a very good football team and a well-coached team.
2nd and 10. St. Louis is going to be sacked. 20 sacks on the year coming into this game in 6 football games, so they are averaging more than 3 sacks a game, and they've already got a 1 sack today and 1 pressure, and they do it by bringing all sorts of people from different positions.
Well, St. Louis is getting a lot of pressure, but he can't take that much time, but it was a very nice job there by Matt Clifford, just fending off the block and then closing in on Matt St. Louis.
And I said that Clifford was having a good year, but had no sacks. Now he has 1, and he also had the pressure earlier today, forcing Yannick Prefontaine, then quarterback, to throw the ball away. So St. Louis has as much success as Prefontaine, which is none. And Pettipaw will kick 7th time today. If he got paid by the kick, you'd have a story. Of course, if you get paid, you'd have a story. Jovetic can't decide whether to field it or not, and he elects to pick it up at the 20-yard line. And he's out to the 25, so we'll see what this Queens offense has now, playing into the wind from somewhat less than desirable field position.
Well, all coaches tell their players, field it in the air whenever possible. Now, he had a lot of time to field that one. You don't want to see them bounce because that's what happened. You end up losing another 10 to 15 yards on it.
He also often will get a fumble, and that ball bounced about a foot in front of him.
That's right.
If it hits him, it's a free ball. Some chalk talk. Hi, Ed. There's Paul Beresford, and Beresford twists and actually goes into the line backwards and picks up about 4. It'll be second down and 6. Hi, Ed.
Why don't I go for Well, it looks like they're trying to do a double team on the nose there, what they're explaining, and obviously the chip off. I'd like to do like this. Here I am turning my head sideways, trying to read the monitor here and trying to get a look at what they're trying to do.
I think you don't have kids. I figured it out. That looks like the artwork of my 4-year-old son, Corey.
I think our producer, Bruce Parham, was saying they discovered us and they made sure that our camera people could not get a better look at it. But that was actually the defense coordinator trying to explain what McGill were trying to do to them on defense.
Paul Beresford having his best day of the season already. Close to 50 yards for Beresford. Queens has the ball second down and 5 from the 20, call it the 31-yard line. They'd like to run on second and long. Here they're going to pass it. It's slapped away, and then Pendergast himself slaps it back down to the ground. I'm surprised there was no offside on that one. Looked like McGill moved very early.
Well, it looks like McGill are getting a little bit more into this football game right now. I think they started off a little bit flat, but they're starting to play people up a little bit tighter. They realize they're down 14-0. They've got to get something going on defense. Now, they're putting a lot of people up there. They're trying to get some pressure in. Now, the key thing is for a defensive line to get your hand up. And you can see they get their hands up, and it was a nice job there by Jeff Shallow.
Let's see if they come after the block. 2 men back, and Climbey now takes a timeout. And if there's one way that McGill is going to get back in the football game, it will be on this punt. Because of combination of factors. McGill has a lot of trouble snapping the ball, Queens does. And McGill has blocked 6 punts, an example of how good they are at blocking kicks. Last week, they blocked the punt, they got called for offside, and they blocked it after the penalty.
That's having confidence in your punt block team. You come back from those kind of circumstances where you have a penalty, and you come back and you block it again.
I have to believe they'll go after it now when you consider they're down 14-0, 11:39 to play in the second quarter, and their offense hasn't done anything. They need to get it some other way. Linklater lines up on the left. He's second from the left, number 15. Climbey's a great athlete and a good punter, but what will the snap be? It's a good one. Climbey has enough time to get away an average kick into the breeze, and it rolls out of bounds. So McGill, for a change, will have some field position to work with. 47-yard line is where they will begin, and when we look at the top 10, you don't see the McGill Redmen, and you see the Queens Golden Gaels and a couple of other teams making their first appearance into the top 10. The Ottawa GGs at 4-2, and the University of Toronto Varsity Blues. When was the last time you could remember U of T in the top 10?
I think it would have to be back in 1983 in their last appearance in the Yates Cup, if I remember correctly.
Who coached them then?
Doug Mitchell. That was his first year out of Mount Allison University. It left Mount Allison, and Steve Bruno took over the reins at Mount A, and then 2 years later they were in the, or I should say the next year, in 84, they were in the Vanier Cup.
At the top, it's St. Mary's, then Saskatchewan and Western. Queens at 6-0. But again, not getting the respect that some would suggest they should deserve. Alberta at 4-2 is ranked number 5, but they may not make it to the playoffs. Same thing with Calgary, number 7. It's a battle between Alberta and Calgary in the West. Only 2 schools making it to the playoffs. You and I have been talking about sort of the best of for this year, and the best defense that we've seen so far, I think you and I agree, is Alberta.
Oh, without a doubt. I don't think anybody can compare to them from what we've seen in that one game. Now, that might have been their best game. We don't know. We don't see them every week, but they were very impressive. They've got some great athletes there playing on defense. Mark Singer and Trent Brown. And
Matheson on the other corner. Probably the best.
Forte. Got some great people there, and they did a nice job against the University of Calgary, who is a very good offense in their own right.
And finally, some running room for Mark Tifo. Actually, he's had 2 good runs, and this one's a first down. And let's check and see who's playing quarterback. And it is another change at quarterback. 11:03 to play in the second quarter, and we're looking at our 3rd quarterback. This is number 10, Justin Raymond.
Well, they want to get Tifo outside. He's got very good quickness as he bounces outside, and they're really sustaining the blocks downfield for him. And I'm sure that McGill is pleased with that. They really have to establish that outside game, and especially without Jerry Eichel, one of their great running backs, injured and not playing today. He probably could have played today, they say, if it had been a playoff game, but they're probably not going to see him play at all.
Here's a look into the future of the McGill Redmen, Justin Raymond. They love this kid. I think he has terrific ability. And right now, he's simply handing the ball off to Mike Zingo, who picks up 5. It'll be 2nd down and 5. Now, Raymond was torn between playing at McGill and Queens, very highly recruited. And in fact, he showed up late to training camp for McGill because he still hadn't decided whether to play here or there. And Charlie Bailey was most pleased when he found out that he would be attending his school.
Well, anytime you get a crew like that, I think it's, as a coach, you just grin from ear to ear, because it's not very often that you get good quality people just deciding at the last moment to come to your institution.
Don't think he's thrown a pass yet this year for McGill.
He has not thrown a pass, so we're probably going to see it, I would assume, in this quarter.
He has the wind, and everybody's got the rain to deal with. A light mist that's falling, which is making the ball a little bit slippery and making it feel a bit colder than it is. 2nd and 6, they go with the reverse, but it's not going to work. Who's got the football? Somebody lying on the ground had the football. And decipher for me, Jamie, what it was that occurred on that play.
Well, they fumbled the exchange here from what I saw. It looks like they're faking it there, and they're going to give it back on an end around, but somehow Masadi did not get his hands on the football, and they were very lucky that there were a few McGill Redmen. Joe Namath, the center, was around to jump on the football.
Even if he had held on to the football, that play was going for a loss of 5 or 6 Pennapaw kicks. 8th punt of the day, his best, but he's got the win for the first time. And penalty comes down. And so does Joel Dagnoni at his 21-yard line. So Queens is forced to start deep in their own territory when we return to Richardson Stadium.
Well, Courtney Trevelyan, number 17, I think we're going to see a little bit of a clip here coming into your screen right there. Actually, he clips the McGill player right in to the ball carrier. Gets a flag thrown. Not only do they get 0 on the return, they get 15 yards back from where he was tackled.
They start at the 10-yard line, and it is Corbett up the middle for a couple. Call it 2nd down and 6. Different kind of offense for Queens now that they're working into the breeze. Much more conservative and almost strictly on the ground.
Well, their philosophy at Queens has been they're a trap, sweep, bootleg-style team. They like the semi-rollout action as well. And they really developed that package very well throughout the season. And it's something that has been in Doug Hargreaves' repertoire for a number of years, and he's had great success with it.
Now, they've played the triple option offense for a while here. 2nd down and 6, and Matt Angus has his first reception of the game, and in fact, the first to somebody but Jock Climbing. And Angus was fine on the pattern and the catch, but he's not so fine running back. And if you're hearing whistles as the ball's being snapped, it's quite confusing. There are people in the crowd, apparently, who have whistles and are blowing.
Well, again, they love this play-action pass, and they like to get Prendergast outside, and they just have Angus go down. There's a nice little square out. Very nice ball control style offense that they're...
Clock is wide to the right, and they look to the right over the middle, and it is the reception for Reed McGrew. You know, one of the things that I have seen Queens do, and I've seen them play, I think, 3 times with Jock Climbing, is use him as a decoy better than anybody else. I mean, you see him run down the field, break off patterns, and the whole defense seems to go towards it.
Well, absolutely. He makes things happen and get other people wide open. That was a nice catch by McGrew, his 15th of the year.
Climbing's to the right, at the bottom of your screen. This is Paul Beresford. And Beresford breaks through the line, and he has room. Beresford very nearly takes it all the way. Beresford for a gain of 27.
Well, we say that Queens is the trap sweep team. This is the time it's a sweep, the lead sweep. and get outside. And Beresford shows he's got excellent speed out here and just picking his way and making sure that he's trying to get everything he possibly can. Look at the McGill guys going after the football and attacking.
Did you feel that McGill was a little hesitant there in tackling in the secondary? There's a lot of guys seem to be grabbing out for sweaters. Do you see that?
Yes.
Pendergast throws it up for Climby, and Chambers has a chance to erase the memory of those 2 long touchdowns, or at least help do so, but he can't bring it down. You know what I mean by that? McGill just in the secondary seems to be quite hesitant.
Well, I'm sure Paul Chambers would have loved to have had that one to make up a little bit for being burned in 2 touchdowns earlier by Jock Climby. Ball not particularly well thrown, but those are the kinds that you have to have if you're going to be a successful defensive back and play corner.
Especially when you're down 14-0 with 7:03 to play in the first half. You need something. Again, Climby lines up to the right with Chambers. And they throw over the middle, but well covered. And number 7, Bob Linklater, was running right with the receiver. Number 25, Peter Hagerman.
Well, Queens has done a very nice job of controlling the football and keeping McGill really in their own end. And McGill really has had no breathing room whatsoever in this first half. I would think you're going to see McGill come after the punter again this time. I mean, they really have nothing to lose at this point in the football game. They've blocked a number of kicks throughout the year.
Well, Climby is only lined up 13 yards deep. Some motion from Beresford, which attracts some attention, and Climby hits it up the middle. And McGill brings it out to the 20-yard line where they'll begin. And they better begin to do something because they are not playing very well offensively. They trail it 14-0. Purple seems to be the trendy color in the CIAU. You see a lot of purple at Bishop's and at one other school in Ontario. Escapes my memory. Why purple here?
I'm not sure why. I guess it's one of the engineers' traditions here from what I understand. And looks like we're at a Western homecoming game.
Western, that was his school. Right.
I had to get that in there, Michael.
First of many, I'm sure. First pass of the career for Justin Raymond. He throws it out for Luke Tifo, and his first pass is almost caught. Tifo made a nice reaction and came back and almost took it away from Chris McCormick.
Now, when that pass is thrown there, Michael, that's the case when the quarterback has to throw the ball a little bit sooner. What he has to do is he's got to make sure that he doesn't wait till the receiver comes open, because then he gets out of his range.
McCormick figured he had an interception, and there was Tifo playing good defense from his wide receiver position.
But he has to throw that ball, and the receiver's only about 7 or 8 yards downfield. He cannot throw it when the receiver's 15 or 16 yards, because by the time the ball is in the air, by the time the receiver gets there, it's too long of a pass. It ends up being a 50, 55-yard throw.
McGill, a passing team for the most part, 0 yards passing right now. And they get their first yardage. There's a nice completion to number 30, the receiver who broke over the middle for the McGill Redmen. Paul Roman. Penalty marker came down. And that's the first career reception for Justin Raymond, pending the outcome of the penalty. Okay, a good look at the crowd, which is as animated and excited as we have seen. So the penalty goes against Queens. It'll be refused, and Raymond has his first reception. And McGill's on the board as far as passing yardage. Gain of 22 to Paul Roman. And let's see if McGill can get something going. You know, Queens scored the 14 points early, but since then they have been held off the board. So McGill could conceivably get back in this football game. Tifo and Masadi to the left. Second effort gets Mark Tifo 5. It'll be second down and 5.
I like Mark Tifo's style. He keeps his legs moving all the time, and he doesn't really give up when he's going into the hole. And not very big at 5'8". Carries a little bit of weight, 183 pounds, though, and keeps those legs moving. So Yannick Prefontaine starting at quarterback. He was replaced after a few series by Andy St. Louis, who played 2 series himself. And he's being replaced by the kid, Justin Raymond.
who we've seen throw his first 2 passes of his career. First one incomplete, second one a completion. Second down and 4. Some running room, and he elects to pass, and it's not a good decision because he overthrows Luke Tifo.
Well, that's a little bit of inexperience there. Anytime you get outside on bootleg action and you've got all sorts of room that you can get the first down without being touched, you want to take that. You have to really, it's a cliche, you got to take what the defense gives you. You hear every coach talk about that. But that, in that case, it's a perfect example of when a young quarterback should do that.
I guess you would only throw the ball in that instance if you got a guy wide open and you know you can get something big. But in that case, his receiver, Luke Tifo, was well covered.
That's right, and they needed the first down. If that's a first down play, that's okay, but they need a first down. And
Chuck Pettipaw has had a career today. This is his 9th punt, his best one. Jovetic at his 15. And Jovetic out over the 20 to the 23-yard line. 9 punts.
Some punters don't get that in a season if they're playing with some pretty good teams. So and I'm sure Chuck Pettipaw would rather be used kicking field goals as opposed to using punts.
The aerial camera will be provided by those balloons. Skies are dropping some rain on us. It's kind of more greasy and slick than it is a downpour or anything. Pendergast throws it to Corbett, but Pendergast was forced to rush the pass because of good pass rush. There's one part of the McGill defense that looks impressive. It's the defensive line. Chalice and Brubacher and, Chalice, Kerr, Webb, and Beaudry.
Well, they're an experienced group. You know, you look at Kerr, 4th year. He's a preseason All-Canadian this year in 1989, and team's most valuable lineman last year. I'm sure he realized, I'm sure he had a few things to say to the defensive line and probably the linebacker at the beginning of the game saying, hey, we've got to get off the ball here. They're starting to do a lot better job of that right now.
Pendergast throws, and he's got Jock Flavey, and that's what respect will do for you. They were laying well off him. Chambers gave him the easy 15, and Pendergast took it. Queens has got a first down.
Well, one thing you don't want Jock Flavey to do is go out and give that little out move and then take it upfield on you while you're jumping on the out. The Queens love to get outside here and get the quarterback free vision. And Prendergast gets outside, and he's just looking to Climby the whole way. It's a designated play. And Chambers backed off a little bit, making sure that Climby does not go by him.
This time Climby's wide to the right. And it's a completion. They looked at Climby for a time. And the best move that Pendergast can make, I think, is looking at Jock Climby because the defense seems to swarm around him. And that left Peter Hageman open for his second reception.
Well, you get the McGill defense, everybody moving to the outside, and they take Hagerman right up the middle. And
I'm not sure that he caught the ball. It seemed to be slipping down his side.
It seemed to be, didn't it?
He seemed to cradle it well enough that they gave him the reception. First and 10. This is Beresford, and Beresford again able to break an arm tackle by a McGill defender. Now, Rob Taylor had a good shot at him, but wasn't really very close to making the tackle.
Well, let's take a look and see if Hagerman catches the ball here. Looks like it goes through him a little bit. Looks like we can
just see it above his helmet, yeah.
I don't think that's a reception. I think that he got a very lucky break there.
And Duncan Carlisle says at the very least it's a fumble. But Beresford picked up 7. It'll be second down and 3. Difficult to say who the injured McGill player is. Hopefully it's not the knee of Paul Kerr that they're looking at. And I say that because Kerr did have knee surgery last year. And it's not Kerr, it is number 59, Norm Beaudry. Jock Climby came into this game 5th on the all-time list with 2,251 yards. And we said before the game that he could move as high as 2nd. He needs 135 yards today to grab 2nd, which means now he needs 35 yards. Climby already 100 yards on 5 receptions. So if he gets the other 35, he will be number 2 on the CIAU list. well behind Brian Fryer, who for Alberta between 72 and 75 caught more than 2,600 yards worth of passes. Second down and 3 for Tim Pendergast and Paul Beresford. And Beresford again rides a tackler out for a first down.
Now, Queens are really doing a nice job here, really getting off the football and establishing the running game with Paul Beresford, who earlier this season in their first 6 games only had 354 yards rushing. And you see some exuberant fans there with the colored hair. Now, I'm not sure what faculty they're from, Michael, but
I could guess it would start with an E, but
I don't know if anybody would take credit for them being in their faculty.
First and 10, and there's a small gain for Beresford. Or Corbett, it'll be second down and 7.
Well, as we still sit here with 2 minutes left to go in the first half, there is still a multitude of people, masses of people on the student side waiting to get into the football game. They're still filtering in because they have to check each student here because of the strict alcohol regulations they have on no one is allowed to bring in any alcohol whatsoever.
But purple is the color of the day, and we haven't yet figured out why. Second down and 7. And this time Pendergast is going to run for the first time today, and he runs out of bounds. And there was, I guess you'd say, good recognition by...
Well, that's right. I think, you know, Tim Pendergast is a fairly experienced quarterback in his 3rd year. And when he runs outside here, and they're running some routes down, they're taking Jock Climbing in a deeper route outside, but he gets out here with his big lineman, and he says, hey, I've got all sorts of running room. I'm just going to take it. No one's paying me any respect. If you want to give me 10 yards each time I carry the ball, I'll take it anytime you want to give it to me.
Blimey lines up wide to the left this time. Chambers follows him over there, first and 10. Chambers this time plays right in his face, you can see. And he won't have to deal with that because Beresford turns the corner. He needs a block, and Beresford takes it down inside the 10 to the 8-yard line. And we are seeing Queens run the ball better today than they have all season long.
It was a nice job here by Doug Corbett, the lead back. You see him, he turns back here, makes a great block. And then it's all Paul Beresford going around the corner. And Jeff Chalice chasing him down from behind. And I believe that puts Beresford over 100 yards for the day.
In the 6 previous games, he had 354 yards total in one half. He's got 112. At the goal line, they throw, and it's a touchdown reception. And a beauty by Reed McGrewer. A diving catch for the 3rd touchdown reception of the day from Tim Pendergast.
Well, just a very quick slant into McGrewer, his 2nd touchdown reception of the season for him, and a great grab and nice control of his body. He's going to McGrewer all the way here.
I asked Doug Hargreaves to describe Reed McGrewer. He said he's had a great year. He's a terrific downfield blocker, a good receiver. The kid's got no speed. Now, when your coach says you got no speed, you're real slow. But he had enough speed to move in front of the defensive back there and make the reception.
Well, McGrewer's been a big receiver for them this year. You know, we talk about Jock Climbing having all the receptions this year, but he, in fact, is their 2nd leading receiver, or excuse me, the 3rd leading receiver with 14 receptions on the year for close to 300 yards.
Jamie Galloway in to attempt the 21st point of the day for the Queens Golden Gaels, and he is successful. 3 touchdown passes from Tim Pendergast, 2 to Jock Climbing, 1 to McGrewer, and they are celebrating at Richardson Stadium in Kingston. Little singing, a little dancing, and why not? It's homecoming. It's 21-0. They're undefeated. They're going to win the O-Q. At least they'll finish in first place.
It'll be interesting to see if Queens continue to really roll over McGill. But, you know, psychologically, playing McGill again the next week back here, it's tough for Queens. It's not tough for McGill. They're going to come back here with all the incentive in the world. But it's tough sometimes when you've beaten a team badly to come back and have that same level of intensity.
And he goes down on one knee, and in collegiate football, when you go down on one knee, you are down. Steve Papp at the 22-yard line, and that's where they'll begin.
Well, once you're down on one knee, as you say, the rule in college football is you're down. Only one exception to that rule, though, Michael, is when you are fielding the kickoff or the punt, you can go down on one knee to field it and get up and run with it.
1:10 to play in the first half. They have already blown this play in, and Justin Raymond is just now, I was going to say sprinting, but that might be a gross exaggeration. Well, how would you, what adjective would you use for his run onto the field?
An enthusiastic lope.
He's got a great arm.
Sure does. He can really throw it.
And Masadi dives, and that was not a good example of Justin Raymond's arm. And Masadi, even with the dive and the extension, still comes up short. 2nd and 10.
You can see Raymond has a lot of people in front of him, and he's been pressured quite a bit today by that Queens defense, and he knows he has to get rid of the ball fairly quickly. Probably he'd like to hold on to it a little bit longer before he throws the ball.
He's playing college football for the first time. I guess that was one of the first times when he really realized how big the linemen are and how when the pocket collapses on you, it's hard to see. He throws for Masadi, and Masadi seemed a bit hesitant to go up for that. Pass wasn't that bad.
No, again with Raymond, what he has to do, he has to get his feet set before he throws the football. He's still moving his feet a little bit, and it's probably because he's expecting the big blitz to come. They didn't come with the blitz that time. They backed off. But he has to be able to read that. And as he gets more comfortable playing college football in the next few years and getting more experience, he will be a better quarterback. He'll know when the blitz is coming, know when it's off, and knows how much time he can take.
You know, there are a lot of examples with just over a minute to play in the first half here, of teams playing the final game of the regular season against the same team that they play in the playoffs. For instance, when you were at Western, you have memory of something which is looking almost like what we're seeing today.
Well, that's right. Back in, I believe in 1987, we beat Guelph in the last game of the season. They meant absolutely nothing. We beat them 50-6 and a little bit of a rout. And then the next week, Guelph had to come back, and they knocked us off in the playoffs 24-22, I believe the score was. So, yes, it's the difference between winning and losing in college football, and especially when you get into the playoffs, is not very great. And if you're not on your guard and you don't play intense the whole time, you can fall.
Chuck Pettipaw will be well oiled by next week. His 10th punt, and this one very nearly blocked. He came out of a crowd to hit that one to Jovetic at the 45. He's got a blocker, and he's got some room. Jovetic down to the McGill 45, so it's a 20-yard return. And the Queens Golden Gaels are in great shape. They lead at 21-0, and they have 53 seconds to play with. Now, what happened to you guys against Guelph?
Well, I don't think Guelph were that bad of a football team in those days. I think that obviously what happened, we get out to a fairly comfortable lead initially. Then Guelph decided, hey, this game is over. We decided it was over. We just played our young kids. They played their young kids. But I guess our guys look at the game a little bit differently than Guelph looked at it. Guelph came back with all the enthusiasm and incentive to beat us the next week.
Pendergast throws for Matt Angus, and he throws, and just as he does, he gets hit, and the pass goes incomplete. Good pass rush there by Graham Webb. Now, would you, looking back on it now, I guess you'd have to say that it probably wasn't a good decision to start substituting at that point.
It's really hard to say. I think that Guelph started to substitute as well. Dan McNally, the coach at Guelph at that time, realized, hey, this game is over. It means absolutely nothing. I'm just going to let my young people play. And unfortunately, the score was really not indicative of what type of a team Guelph was, as was demonstrated the next week.
Pendergast throws in the run. It's a wobbly pass, and Climbing isn't able to get back for it. And now a penalty comes down and could be roughing the passer. We'll see. 44 seconds to play in the first half, 21-0. But, you know, you look back and in hindsight, they can make that decision and say, the game's over, we can substitute. But you obviously made the wrong decision in saying that the game was over, because it wasn't.
Well, if you want to view those two games as one's the first half, one's the second half, you're absolutely correct. And the point is, only the second half really counted.
It's going to be Scott Weldon. Passes well off, and Weldon and then one of the linemen combined to apply the hit and give Queens a first down.
That's frustration more than anything right at this point in the ball game.
That's foolishness, too, because
it really is.
You consider that Queens would have been third and forced to kick it, and probably out of field goal range, but now they have a 1st and 10 from the 41-yard line, and still plenty of time, 44 seconds to play in the first half. Pendergast has some room, but he elects to throw, And he throws it over the head of the receiver, number 9, Rock Kennedy.
Well, McGill are doing a little bit better job of stringing it out right now. They're making sure that Prendergast does not get his shoulders turned upfield. And consequently, when a quarterback can't get his shoulders turned upfield and his momentum upfield, his throw is not going to be as accurate. He doesn't have as much control because he likes to get his hips pointed right towards the receiver. There they strung him out and he's kind of moving away from him. He's moving laterally as opposed to vertically up the field.
Jock Climby's played wide receiver most of this game. He now lines up as a slot back on the right side. But it's a running play to Beresford, plenty of room. Beresford inside the 25-yard line. A gain of 16 on 2nd and 10.
Well, those are the calls that everybody always second guesses when it gets stuffed. But that's the reason why they ran that particular off-tackle play. McGill are a little bit disarray here. They were expecting the pass. And the hole a mile wide because all those defensive linemen are taking their pass rush lane, thinking that it's going to be passed.
Nice block by Mike Ross to spring him. Queens takes a timeout. And again, you look at that unnecessary roughness, the roughing the passer penalty, and it looks big right now. Queens has a first down at the 25-yard line, and still, time isn't even a factor. 33 seconds to play in the first half, and still a couple of timeouts left, or one timeout left. And still fans file in. This game has been sold out for a week. They say it's the earliest that they've sold out. We're happy to be here. I'm Michael Landsberg along with Jamie Bone. And the first time that I've ever done a game from Richardson Stadium. I began broadcasting CIAU on TSN in 1985. John Wells and Tuffy Knight broadcast in 1984, a game from here. But it's our first time back since then. And happy to be here and watching a good-looking Queens team. Climby lines up in the slot to the right. And it is Jock Climby as the intended receiver, picked off by Paul Chambers, who came off of his own man to make the interception.
Did Paul Chambers, he played that expertly. So we're looking at a flag on the field, and we'll have to wait to see whether or not that interception counts.
Now the personnel that we're seeing come back on the field, I'd say it's going to be against McGill. And the area that it was, I'd say roughing the passer again.
That's what it is.
It was after the interception. So yes, it is a penalty against McGill, but the interception counts.
Well, Prendergast's looking to climb here all the way, and he just zeroed in on him. That's when Chambers decides to come off of his man and makes a great interception.
Now he was covering Matt Angus, who was about 5 yards to the right of Jock Climby. Could that possibly be a bad pattern as well?
Possibly. You don't want to have people in the same area that way, but in man coverage, you never know. I'm not sure if they're going down and trying to pick somebody, which is illegal, but they still do it anyway, or whatever. But obviously, that wasn't probably a pass that Prendergast should have thrown.
Chambers saves his team at least 3 and probably 7, and maybe keeps them in the football game. But still, they need some offense, and they've had none. 21-0, 27 seconds to play in the half. And they're going to let the kid throw the ball, and Raymond almost intercepted. He went for Luke Tifo. You call it gutsy, but you might think of another word to use for it as well.
Not a great decision there. I think what he's doing right now, though, is that the coach is just saying, hey, go out there and play. Don't worry about the score. Don't worry about the field conditions. Don't worry about anything right now. Just go out and try and move the offense. I don't think he would play the same way, or maybe might not even be playing at this point in the ball game if, in fact, it was a playoff game.
We'll have to see who will start next week, especially if Raymond comes on and plays well. Clearly, Bailey wasn't happy with the play of Prefontaine or St. Louis. Raymond throws it up, and this time he threw it plenty early, but Randy Zarichny's right there. And that's the second time they've gone deep, both times against the best defender on this Queens team.
Well, now this sets up a situation where it's third down. There's 15 seconds left. Queens are going to get another shot.
And Zarichny is down. He was the closest guy to the ball. He dove for the pass, which was still well over his head.
See, he's flexing his hand there, and it's hard to say how he hurt himself there, but obviously he was squeezing his left hand a little bit, maybe jammed his elbow or whatever.
Well, sometimes, you know, on a day like this when it's cold, you can get injured and feel injured if you're not seriously injured. Just, you know, you get banged around a bit and it hurts, but Zarichny is still down.
Looks like a shoulder problem there they're looking at right now.
He's their best cornerback, and he's one of the players that allows them to play that blitzing, very aggressive style up front.
Oh, absolutely. If you don't have the people back in your secondary that can cover man for man, you cannot be going around blitzing the quarterback all day, because a quarterback, an experienced quarterback, loves to get you in man coverage because he knows that, hey, I think my receiver can beat you anytime.
We said it would be fun, and it has been. Homecoming day at Queens. Number 11 for Chuck Pettipaw, and this is his best beauty. Jovetic at midfield.
Run hard.
But Jovetic straight up the middle, wisely brings it out to the 41-yard line. 5 seconds to play.
Well, I don't think they would attempt a field goal from here. They've got a pretty stiff breeze blowing them right in the face. And
Galloway has the strong leg. I think if I were Doug Hargreaves and I had Jock Climbey, I'd send him down. Even though he'll probably be well covered laying off. He jumps better than anyone. Throw it up for him.
I'm sure that's what they'll do.
Climbey comes wide to the right. Actually, he's not the widest to the right. Now he is. Everybody else to the left, so they're trying to get as many defenders away from there as they can. And it's a screen pass to Beresford. And Beresford picks up 8, but the first half is over, and it's a great first half for the Queens Golden Gaels. We were talking before the game about how good are they? What do you think?
Well, I think Queens are a great football team, and I think that they're showing us today that why they are, in fact, ranked where they are in the country right now. Number 4 ranked team. They're playing great defense. I've been very impressed with them in the first half.
2 touchdown passes to Jock Climbey, 1 to Reed McGrewer, all 3 by Tim Pendergast, and it is 21-0 at homecoming at Queens, and we'll return to Kingston in just a moment. It's halftime here at Queens, and the Golden Gaels have it had all their way. Tim Pendergast has thrown 3 touchdowns, and they lead the McGill Redmen 21-0 in this, the annual homecoming game. Said in our opening that they began playing football, these two teams, in 1898. There is no school with a richer tradition in football than Queens, and there is one man that brings out more respect than any other, Frank Tyndall.
In 1969, the CIAU honored coaches everywhere, naming their Football Coach of the Year trophy for Frank Tyndall. As Queens University approaches its 150th anniversary, the university has chosen to recognize Coach Tyndall for his many contributions to Golden Gael athletics. Frank Tyndall led Golden Gael teams for 29 years, winning 8 conference championships and a national title. This spring, one of his players, Haino Lillis, Justice of the Yukon, returned to Queens representing hundreds of former Gaels by placing an honorary degree hood over the head of his coach, Dr. Francis G. Tyndall.
Still the mentor, still the kindly old coach. 14 years into overtime.
I admit you to this degree with all its rights and privileges.
I am joined by the person just called the kindly old coach. I'm sure you don't like the old part. Were you a kindly style coach, Frank Tyndall?
Well, that's a matter of
what would your
perception
players
of be. Oh, in my presence, I'm sure they'd say kindly.
What do you think today? It's an outstanding crowd, a capacity crowd, very well-behaved.
Certainly is, and a typical Queens group as far as the spirit and everything is concerned, and it makes you feel real happy.
How closely do you follow the football program now?
Well, as close as I can without interfering, in other words.
So you're opposed to interfering. That's too bad. I'm sure they could, at times, use your expertise, but it's been a good year so far, and how do you feel about this team's chances to go all the way?
Well, of course, we don't know anything, or I don't know anything about the other leagues, so I would say we have a well-balanced team and probably capable of being a good competitor in the final series.
You've played, obviously, for a great many homecomings. What was your feeling on homecoming day? Was it special to you?
Well, it was particularly because so many of the players would be back on the various years, so at least it gives you a chance to renew your acquaintances with them. Because they, by and large, and all of them were a great bunch of fellas. I never had any difficulty with any of them in any way. So I think we're very grateful for that.
What do you think of the football that you see today, not just in today's game, but in general in 1989 compared to the football that you guys played?
Well, of course, I think there's a lot of improvement in the respect that in our early years, there was very little television. In fact, they rarely took pictures, so they more or less started taking more pictures when I first started coaching. And given an opportunity, that is, the players coming out of high school, to watch television, for example, to see how receivers act, to see how passers pose to throw, to see how people block, is generally a lot better than anybody trying to demonstrate to them that is playing coach who might be, like me, a little bit too old to be demonstrating anything.
Well, you coached here from 48 to 75. You must have a lot of great memories. If you were forced to say one, what would be your favorite?
Oh, that's a tough one to ask. I don't think I could say one. We've seen that. We've had some good ones, and I just couldn't remember all of them, or sort them out into one particular thing. I'm sorry, I just don't have it.
I'm interested to know, and we talked about your coaching style a few moments ago. Tell me, if you were coaching at halftime, and let's say you were coaching the McGill Redmen today, and you were down by 21 points at the half, what would you have said to your players?
Well, I think that probably the big adjustment they have to make is according to the way the temperature's been and the weather, the rain, I'm sure has made it very difficult for their quarterback to throw the ball. And they've made a few mistakes, and they made quite a few mistakes, and rectifying a few of them is going to make it a lot closer game in the second half.
Would your players have been afraid to see you at halftime down 21-0?
Oh, no. They'd probably be hoping I could come up with something.
Frank, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Frank Tyndall is a legend around here at Queen's University. It is a program that has a great deal of prestige, a great deal of history, and this man is a big part of the history. Frank Tyndall will return to Queen's University with more right after this. Halftime in the homecoming game between the Queen's Golden Gaels and the McGill Redmen. It has all been Queens so far, 21-0. They have made it look easy. Of course, the big part of homecoming is what we are seeing today, the football game between McGill and Queens. But when you talk about homecomings, you have to talk about what happened the Friday night before, and that's what Rod Smith will do now.
Homecoming is one of the main attractions of the school year. And one of the main attractions of homecoming is football, especially for those alumni members who used to play for the Gaels.
It's really the focal point. You know, Queen's tradition in football has been great, and it's great to bring the alumni back. And I think they see a great difference over the years, moving to the new stadium from the old. We miss the old stadium, but the new stadium provides a 1-mile walk with the student parade.
I played in '55, and it was a very good time to play because there were an awful lot of wonderful football players on that team, like Ronnie Stewart and Gary Schreider and Gary Lewis and Lou Bruce and many, many wonderful football players, and we were lucky enough to win the championship that year.
What position did you play?
I played a long way down the bench, Rod. As a reserve end.
Here we go.
Doug Hargreaves became Queen's head coach in 1976. He, too, is a former Gaels player, so he's been through the homecoming experience many times before. He's understandably biased, but Hargreaves also would like to think football is the center point of this weekend, and the Gaels try to take advantage of it.
Well, I'd like to think it's a hell of a lot more fun than rallying around a math class. It certainly brings a lot of old alum back. I think it's a big feature of the weekend for most people. It's certainly been historically very colorful here. We always try to shoot our recruiting film at homecoming because we put 14,000 people in a 10,000-seat stadium. And it's usually an exciting football game. It's great.
Many of these players know what to expect. They've been through homecoming before, but there are many other rookies who've never experienced it. There's more electricity in the air, more people in the stands, and, depending on who you ask, more pressure to win.
I feel none. The players might. I don't know how big homecoming is to the athlete.
As our coach is fond of saying, if we feel pressure, it's only from ourselves. So we try not to put pressure on ourselves for sure. I don't think it helps your performance to be pressured. So I don't think it really affects our play, certainly. But some people are conscious of the fact that there's a lot of alumni here who expect big things out of the team this year, especially. So it just makes things a little more interesting.
Boy, this brings back a lot of memories. I had the pleasure of playing for Queens for 2 seasons and in 2 homecoming games. The old helmet, that was my stall back in 1979, my first season. And this is my old jacket from '79. You know, I remember the homecoming game that year. I remember the team we played. It was like this weekend, the McGill Redmen. And I remember the score in that game. We did win it, and it was 17-6. I just don't remember this jacket ever feeling so tight.
Oh, well, no one's memory is perfect, I guess. But for those who come to Kingston for this annual festivity, memories are pretty easily rekindled, just as they will be in years to come when these Golden Gaels move to the stands and watch a different group carry on the Queen's tradition.
Obviously, those jackets shrink over time.
Not mine. I still have my minor football ones. They all fit me.
That's a quarterback position for you. Size isn't important. Let's talk about that first half. You know, we're talking about the tradition here at Queens for football. They played it for so long, but really they haven't had a lot to talk about over the past handful of seasons. It's been kind of a downtime for football here.
I think you're right there, Michael. I think that Queens have had some problems. But, you know, every year I'm sure that they're similar to when I was at Western, because the programs are very similar in a lot of ways, that there's great expectation when you have a great tradition in your program. Everybody expects you to win it every year. And I think Doug Hargreaves has done an excellent job with this program since he's, in fact, come to Queens back in 1975.
Also expectations when you have as good a player there is in this country, and that's Jock Climie, and that's where we begin our first half highlights.
Well, Jock Climie, obviously, we know what kind of a player he is. Prendergast doesn't waste any time in going to him here early in the first quarter. They just run a post pattern. Climie's against number 21, Paul Chambers, and Chambers, he knew he was going to have a long day, but he was hoping it wasn't going to be this kind of a day. But Climie makes a great reception to put them up 7-0.
Very next possession, Chambers was there and appeared to have a shot at this ball, but Climie, besides having all kinds of speed, is pretty strong as well.
Well, Chambers is following Climie wherever he goes in the field, and they don't waste any time. Again, they come right back to him, but this time on the other side. And they just throw it as deep as he can, Prendergast. But Climie makes a nice catch here. Watches a little bit of interference here before the ball arrives, but Climie's an outstanding athlete and comes down with the touchdown.
No surprise Queens is throwing the ball, but what is a surprise from that first half was their running game. They had a couple of large gains on the ground.
Well, Queens loves to run trap as well, and they run the inside trap as well as anybody, and boy, Doug Corbett busts it right up the middle for a 25-yard run, which was very close to a touchdown.
They were leading at 14-0. They were faced with 3rd and 1 in the McGill territory, and this looked like it could have been a huge play.
Well, McGill needed a break at this time of the ball game, but we're going to look at number 32, Beresford, try and get the ball here, but Chalice comes in, number 73, and strips the ball. And then you see it lying around there, but who comes in but number 63, Graham Webb.
But eventually, McGill punted it back. It seems like that's all they did in the first half was punt. Queens got it back and drove downfield.
Well, McGill obviously, Queens obviously makes their own breaks. Prendergast here going to Reed McGrewer, the inside receiver. Just a very quick slant in, but he stretches the body out and makes a great reception to put them up 21-0.
And then they came down and tried to make it 28-0. And for a change, Paul Chambers was able to run off the field with a smile.
Well, that's right. Within the last minute of the game, Queens were driving again. You had Prendergast was throwing the ball pretty effectively. In the first half, he's been 8 of 19, 142 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 interception. And he gets back and throws the football here. But obviously, the man who's been beaten twice earlier, Paul Chambers, decides to come up and make a great interception to snuff out any chance for Queens to go ahead 28-0. A key interception at a critical time of the football game.
But the only way that's going to prove to be key is if McGill can find some kind of offense. Defensively, they had their moments, but offensively, they had no moments. They did absolutely nothing with the football.
Well, that's right. Now, it's hard to say. Is that because McGill is not very good offensively, or is it because Queens is great defensively? I happen to think the latter. I think Queens has been very underrated throughout this season. I think they're a better football team than a lot of people have given them credit for. I, for one, was one of those people. I wasn't really quite sure if they should be ranked maybe number 4 in the country. But they're making a believer out of me today.
Who do you think they'll start at quarterback? I mean, you can spin the big wheel and see whose name that comes up. Does it come up Raymond? Does it come up St. Louis? Does it come up Prefontaine?
Well, I think you're going to stay with the rookie Justin Raymond, I think, in the second half. Give him some playing experience. What I'm going to be looking forward to see if Queens stays with Prendergast, because they've got a great freshman in their own right, Ed Kidd, another player from Ottawa. And I'd like to see him get some playing time in the second half and show you what he can do. You
were talking about great moments for McGill. There was one great moment, probably their best, and it was 2 years ago in Toronto at Varsity Stadium in the 1987 Vanier Cup as McGill won big over UBC. In the fourth quarter, with McGill in control, David Moffat tips this Jordan Gagné pass, and Wayne McRae was there to intercept. McRae rambled 66 yards for the score as McGill blew out UBC 47-11 to win the 1987 Vanier Cup. Welcome back to Queens Homecoming, and the Queens Golden Gaels lead it by a score of 21-0, and we offer our congratulations to these Watch and Win sweepstakes winners. Gil White of Edmonton, Alberta picked up $100 in Texaco gas. Pete Abbott of Calgary grabs the Bank of Montreal traveler's checks, and Hugh Walker will wonder, where is the Jamie Bone autograph? He picked up the Jamie Bone autograph Spalding football. You got to get to work. You're way behind.
I've already got writer's cramp from writing all those autographs on that football, Michael.
And autographs, of course, on your way up, you legend, you. And here are the first half statistics dominated by the Queens Golden Gaels. You can see yards passing and rushing more balanced than they've had all season long. Probably the first time when they've rushed for more than they've passed. And you can see on the other side, no balance, no nothing from McGill. 18 yards passing. And basically what you saw was a lot of punting. 11 punts for Chuck Pettipaw. The crowd is of capacity numbers, about 11,000, and they are certainly happy with what they're seeing. 21-0, Queens leads. The undefeated Queens Golden Gaels in rank number 4. And a short kick, a dangerous type of kick that is a free ball. But it's picked up by Mark Tifo, and he brings it out to the 35-yard line. Out of town of note, and this is important in the sense that if Carleton could pull off an upset, then McGill had a chance at being number 3, but it is not going to work that way. Concordia is going to beat Carleton 17-0 at the half. So next week we will see, almost assuredly, a rematch of today's game. Queens will finish first, McGill will finish 4th. And at quarterback, we're seeing Yannick Prefontaine. He started the football game, played the first 4 series, then gave way to Andy St. Louis, who gave way to Justin Raymond. And here's the first carry of the game and a fumble, and Queens gets the ball right away. First carry of the second half, first play of the second half for Mark Tifo, and he gave it right to Queens.
Well, McGill starting off actually in the wrong foot here in the second half. They wanted to try and get something established with Tifo. It's hauled down, and the ball just squirts loose, and there's a swarm of Golden Gaels going around the football, and this didn't actually hit by anybody, but just the momentum of him going down. It seems the ball obviously a little bit wet, slips out of his arm.
Queens into the wind, keeps it on the ground, and they run the trap play to Corbett, and Corbett stays alive long enough. Kerr had him from the ground to pick up 4. It'll be second down and 6. Queens is working left to right on your screen into the breeze. And we've seen 2 different Queens offenses. When they had the win, they went deep to Pliny. on a number of occasions. They got 2 touchdowns, and when they've been going into the win, they have run on 2nd and long a number of times. And that's what they'll do here. Beresford, and he's not going to get the first down. Not even close. Hagen Menard brings him down, and Queens doesn't do much after the turnover. Line of scrimmage will be the 32, which means it would be a 39-yard attempt if they go for it for Jamie Galloway. And it looks like they'll punt the ball. Jock Climbing, in fact, will stay on and kick it.
I think it's a little bit out of his range right now. I think especially with that breeze blowing, I don't think that they want to chance that because, you know, when you have to stay in and block for a field goal, you don't get your coverage team downfield as well, and they don't want to let McGill come back and have a big run back. They want to keep McGill down their own end and hopefully inside of the 10-yard line.
Only Climby's 4th punt. Corbett goes in motion. A good snap. And a kick into the breeze that might work out very well. And it does. McGill fields it at the 5 and brings it out to the 6. And when you kick from your 37-yard line, you're in a good position. There's not a lot that can go wrong. You just hit it down the middle. Even if it's not a great kick, you come up pretty well.
That's right. And to be honest with you, I'm sure that Jock Climbing did not want to kick that into the end zone. They want to make sure that the ball was within that 10-yard line. If they can get it within the 5, even better. The one point doesn't really mean anything for them right now. They just want to make sure that McGill has their back up against the wall and not to give them any breathing room whatsoever.
Charlie Bailey's never had a lot of success against Queens. Today's success isn't the most important thing on his mind. He wants to win next week when these two teams meet in the first round of the O-Q playoffs. And there is the second official pass up of the day. The first one was Jamie Bone coming up to the broadcast booth, signing autographs all the way up. Never seen anything like it. Prefontaine, they come right back to Tifo. This time he doesn't fumble, but he also doesn't pick up anything. Doug Hargreaves is seeing this game work just the way he wants. Conversely, Hargreaves has had success against McGill. No surprise when you consider that the 2 coaching careers of Hargreaves and Bailey have been almost simultaneous. So when Hargreaves is winning, Bailey is losing.
Well, it looks like Doug Hargreaves is going to get his 100th victory in his coaching career at the university level. And that spans a time when he was at RMC, Royal Military College here in Kingston, as well as Dalhousie and obviously Queens.
Prefontaine avoids the safety touch, but he almost gave up a touchdown. Dirk Brubacher will never have a better opportunity to score a touchdown.
Well, Brubacher is the nose tackle, and boy, he's hitting himself in the head. Prefontaine has a little bit of difficulty here. He's got a lot of shirts coming at him from opposite color, and he's just trying to get rid of that football. Not a wise move. And it hits Brubacher right in the head, and he looks around, and it goes off his heel, and he thinks, oh my, I could have had my touchdown, my first touchdown and an interception. There he is, just shaking his head.
Petipaw's 12th punt of the game. And he's not lined up before 15 yards deep. High snap, he pulls it down. Adequate kick with the wind. Jovetic at his 47, 35, 32. A good weaving return by Jovetic, and the 32-yard line is where Queens will begin. They've had great field position all day.
You know, we talked about Brubacher. I said his first touchdown, actually, he scored a touchdown versus Carleton.
That is an outstanding sign. You find that people with purple faces are very creative people.
But you notice how everybody's passing it around. Everybody wants mom to send money.
Hopefully money and soap. Pendergast over the middle. There's a nice pass, and something after the reception. Reed McGruer made the catch at the 20 and brought it down all the way to the 10.
Well, Prendergast and McGruer are starting to hook up here a little bit, coming across the middle. And a nice reception, and then he does a nice little thing with the ball after he catches it, and he's trying to get every little bit of yardage that he possibly can here. Called down, but they do have a lot of weapons other than Jock Climbing. I think we're seeing that today.
Climbing's to the left, and that's where Beresford looks, or, excuse me, Pendergast to Climbing, and Climbing comes back for it and makes the reception, and a gain only of 6, far and away his shortest of the day.
The thing that impresses me about Climbing is he's so smooth. I mean, he makes everything look effortless. I mean, it's just a great athletic play. Prendergast flows the ball out here, catches it in the hands, makes sure now he almost gets away from Chambers into the end zone. I mean, this guy's sniffing the end zone every time he gets the football.
They have to get to the 3 for a first down. They're at the 7. Penalty down. And Climbey dives and can't bring it down. The penalty marker came down right at the snap of the ball, which would, I think, indicate that McGill probably was lined up offside. Let's see what the call is. Charlie Bailey's not going to like it because Queens will get a second opportunity. McGill was offside, and he says, well, we stopped him. That's the second time that we've given them a first down after stopping it. It was second down and 6, so it should now be second down and 1.
Well, what I was surprised at in that last play that they threw to Climbey is that the defensive back playing a man coverage is not playing tight inside. I mean, they gave him the quick in, and you cannot do that against a player like Climbey. Now they're playing him a little bit tighter inside, making sure they does not have the quick rope to the inside.
Because now it doesn't really matter. It's Beresford on the ground, and Beresford doesn't pick up much, but I believe enough for the first down. And that would give McGill a first down and goal from about the 3-yard line. 9:57 to play. We're glad you're with us today on a CIAU Saturday on TSN. This is our final regular season game of the season. Next week we'll do a first-round playoff game either in the O-Q or Ontario. That decision will be made on Monday. Watch TSN for the details. And after that, it's a conference championship, then the 2 championship bowl games, and then the Vanier Cup on November the 18th. First and goal for the 3. Beresford. Second effort gets him in for the touchdown.
No, just an outstanding effort by Beresford. I mean, stopped initially, and then he decides to keep his legs moving. Queens love to run a power-off tackle down at the goal line. And you can see Beresford, actually a nice job by Duncan Carlisle to stuff him up initially, but he slips off, keeps those legs moving, and finds his way into the end zone. We call it a great second effort.
The first touchdown on the ground, 3 touchdown passes before it by Tim Pendergast. Beresford gets in from the 3 for the 27th point, and Jamie Galloway gives them the 28th point of this football game. And that's where we are with 9:35 to play in the third quarter. The Queens Golden Gaels undefeated, and you can assume that they will be that way when this game is over as well. We'll return to Richardson in a moment. You'd have to say the most creative makeup jobs that we've seen all year. Not only the purple faces, but also the multicolored faces.
I think it's great, actually. I love the spirit that the Queens students are actually showing. I think it's really great for college football.
And so far, very well behaved as well. Kifo started at his 20 and did a nice job to pick up 20 on the return and bring it out to the 40-yard line, which is where they'll begin, and we'll have to see who's at quarterback. It has been somebody different almost every time. Still no appearance from the quarterback, and now Yannick Prefontaine runs onto the field. He started the game. He gave way to Andy St. Louis, who gave way to Justin Raymond, who gave way to Yannick Prefontaine. I don't think Prefontaine has a completion yet. 0 for 6. Which makes calculating yardage and touchdowns quite easy as well. First and 10. There's Tifo. And Tifo picks up a gain of 2 maybe. Early penetration by number 53. It was, I'm not sure there is a 53. Which may have been why he was able to get in there. No one knew he existed. Well, the right offensive tackle is 53. Seems unlikely it was him. May have been number 33, Mike Boone, who disrupted that play. Gain of only 1, it'll be second down and long, which is familiar territory for Prefontaine. Prefontaine gets outside, now has some time, and the ball almost picked off. You know, they've tested Zaricki 3 times, and they have not come close to beating him.
Listen, Zaricki's just sitting there waiting. He just can't wait for Prefontaine to throw him the ball because he's saying, hey, that's mine, that's mine. Throw it, throw it. He does throw it now. He's almost too aggressive with the ball because he goes a little bit by the ball in front of it. I mean, he was hanging there for the interception.
11,000 fans here, 10,999 of them are Queens fans. Here's the one lone McGill fan, and he's big enough to make it work. If you're going to be the lone McGill fan here at Queens Homecoming,
you better be big.
You better be big.
And tough.
Petipaw's 13th kick of the day might be a lucky one for McGill. It bounces off the shoulder of Jovetic. And Queens will begin from the 30-yard line with a 28-0 lead and 7:54 to play in the third quarter. So we've now seen all but Saskatchewan in terms of the teams in the upper echelon as you look at Doug Hargreaves, who is looking for a milestone today.
Well, he's going to be only one of 4 other coaches to hit the 100-win career mark. The others being Bruce Coulter with 137, and then Don Loney, the legendary coach from St. X with 133, and John Metris at Western 106, and of course Frank Tyndall, who we had on at halftime with 105 victories, so he's getting very close to that mark.
Here's Beresford following Corbett, and I'm not sure as we look on the replay that he and Corbett were sort of on the same page there. Picked up the first down, but now, is the running back with the ball supposed to read where the block's going to be and what direction to head?
Well, absolutely. He knows where the block is going to take place and where the point of attack is. And in fact, they get outside here so clean now. You can see that Corbett's looking back inside for any kind of sequence, but then he sees Linklater come up and he tries to get it engaged with him. Now, he didn't stay with him very long, but just enough to let Beresford get outside and get some pretty good yardage.
I think he wanted Beresford to go back inside, but he didn't. And he gets a first down, and now Beresford, who's run harder today than we've seen, doesn't pick up much that time. Jeff Chalice was there, so was Scott Weldon. So we've seen now the #1 ranked St. Mary's Huskies twice in a row. We have seen Queens. We've seen Alberta and Calgary. We have not telecast a game involving Western. You have seen Western play. We haven't seen Saskatchewan. So you've seen basically everybody but Saskatchewan.
That's right.
And after this play, I'm going to ask you, who's the best? Reed McGruer makes his 3rd reception of the day, and it's good for a gain of 12 and another Queens first down. Okay, you're up.
Who's the best?
Not who's going to win the Vanier Cup, but who's the best team right now?
Boy, you know, here I am sitting on the fence again, but if I could take portions of team, I'd love to take St. Mary's offense and Alberta's defense, and I would say they're the best teams right there. I don't know, Michael, I guess that's the beauty of the playoffs. I would have to say right now, St. Mary's is the best team in Canada. I think that they have such a great offense. I don't think their offense has been tested yet, but I think no matter what, they still have great athletes. They've been to the Vanier Cup before, and their defense is not playing poorly.
Pendergast drops the ball, then drops it again, and they get it back. Now, St. Mary's, if they win the East, and everything's now an if, would host in the Atlantic Bowl the winner of the OUAA. As you look at Pendergast fumble not once, but twice.
Well, he's not supposed to hit the lead back there. It's supposed to be trapped. He didn't get all the way around like he's supposed to, and he kind of got off to the side, and therefore the back hit the ball out of his hands, and then it looked like nobody wanted to pick up that football.
Watch the center's feet. Watch him kick the ball back here. Does he do this on purpose?
No, I don't believe so. I think he's so surprised at seeing the ball on the ground, he's just trying to do anything he possibly can to get his body over it.
2nd down and 17. They throw it up. And Chambers fields it like a punt and has his 2nd interception. Climbey's going to run him down from behind, but he's brought down before that by Beresford. Pendergast threw it up for grabs, and Chambers has his 2nd interception.
Well, I'm really not sure who Prendergast is throwing. I guess it's what you call a hope and a prayer pass, just hoping that somebody comes into that area. Jock Climbey was close, but actually Chambers had the... It was like building a punt.
Here's the most important game of the day, probably, certainly in Ontario. Guelph and Western, they are tied at 7 in the 2nd.
Not quite the same shootout they had last year. That game, final game of the year, was 53-53. Most points scored, I think, in an OUAA game in history. It's more like a defensive struggle today.
Here comes the blitz. If Prefontaine can get outside, he's got room, and there is Zarickny again. He has not left the net that he's been covering all day. Fourth time that they've tested him, and I don't think a McGill player has touched the ball. I think Zarickny's had a hand on it each time.
Well, Zarickny, as you say, is a great player. I'm surprised you're going to him or his side as much as they are. They should be going to the other side, probably Chris McCormick's side, because he's a little bit less tested. He's probably not as experienced. He's not as experienced as Zarickny, and they're giving Zarickny a lot of work. And he's responding. He's saying, hey, keep coming to my side. You can't complete a pass over here yet. Just keep coming.
Zarickny goes wide to the right. He lines up against Steve Bergeron. That's the top of your screen. Second down and 10 for Prefontaine and McGill. Here comes the blitz again. And he throws over the middle, and he's got a reception. Courtney Shrimpkin pulls down his first of the day. They looked to him on the first play of the game, and they haven't looked to him since.
No, they've been trying to run a lot of their offense outside, trying to get Prefontaine outside away from that heavy rush. And they just take Courtney Shrimpton down, and they just hook him up into that dead spot in the zone.
And I believe Yannick Prefontaine can get excited about his first completion of the game. Now, he has played the entire game, but he's played a good part of it. We've got 4:16 to play in the third quarter, so it hasn't been a great game.
Now, getting back to that top 10, who the best team is in the nation? I'd say St. Mary's. But again, in fairness to Saskatchewan, I have not seen them play. And they obviously look like they're a great football team. I mean, they've been playing everybody very tough out west. They have a great record. But that's a very competitive league out there. And that's one of the things that I think might hurt St. Mary's possibly in the playoffs when they leave, or in the Atlantic or the Vanier Cup, is possibly the lack of competition. I think that Chris Flynn said last week that, in fact, the East, a lot of the teams are rebuilding, and I think that's a fair statement. It looks like out west, a lot of teams are very strong at this point.
Third down and about an inch for Prefontaine and McGill, and they'll go for it. And they'll get it, but I don't think they got more than 6 or 7 inches. Tifo going up over the top, and immediately following the game, stay tuned for the TSN Turning Point, brought to you today by Congress. And also a reminder to stay tuned immediately following the game for the Passport International Automobile Player of the Game. Passport International Automobiles will award a $500 scholarship in the name of the player to his school's General Scholarship Fund. And it seems like the school that will benefit will be the Queen's University. The question is who, as they get the first down. Pendergast started well. It's kind of cooled out a little bit. Climbey has the 2 touchdown passes, both in the first quarter. Beresford is having his best game of the season. He's gained more than 100 yards in the first half. Some of the candidates. First and 10 from McGill now, as they are at the 48-yard line of Queens. This might be their deepest penetration. And they go deep. Prefontaine to Masadi, and Masadi goes up high, but he's well covered by the safety on that side, number 17, Courtney Trelevin.
Well, they haven't really been going to Christian Masadi very much today, but they take Masadi down the sidelines. He's actually lined up at the slot and kind of wheeled out. It was a nice attempt, but it's a great coverage by Courtney Trelevin.
And he kind of did everything he could to break that play up without actually doing anything to break that play up.
That's right. Hey, you don't want to face guard when you get in that instance. When your back's to the quarterback and you're playing man coverage, you know the ball's coming because the receiver's eyes get as big as saucers. You just make sure that you play between the ball and the receiver. You just don't put up your hands to face guard anybody.
Going to be a screen pass. Is it going to work? No. Excellent anticipation. Beautifully read by number 30, Dan Paulou, who was able to bring down Wally Sordo 8 yards deep in the backfield.
Well, when you're running man coverage, as Queen seems to, because they're bringing people up front, Paulou is obviously manned up on Wally Sordo, and he's right there when the ball is caught.
Now, you would think a team that blitzes as much as Queens has blitzed would be susceptible to screen passes and things like that, but McGill certainly hasn't been able to exploit it today.
They would be if you can hide the back. The problem is sometimes the back shows a little bit too soon, and when you're in man coverage, you're going to have a guy on the back, and sometimes it's very difficult once you block him before he gets into the backfield.
Pettipaw may be suffering from foot fatigue. 14th punt of the game. Jovetic out to the 18-yard line. So it's been 2 plays and a punt from Pettipaw for the most part for the McGill Redmen today. Is the Sky Dome ready for some purple?
The Purple Plumbers project Gaels in the Sky Dome.
I'm not sure what the bottom line is. And it might be just as well, but I'm not sure. Here's Beresford, who's well over the 100-yard mark, and he's going to add plenty more. Beresford, plenty of room out over the 35 to the 37-yard line. He picked up another 18. And we'll try to get a total for you on Paul Beresford's day so far, which has clearly been his best of the season.
Well, Queens are doing a nice job of holding their blocks. You can see number 43 in your picture there, Scott Weldon being blocked by number 58, Bernie McDonald, and Paul Beresford is doing a nice job. But really, that credit for him, I'm sure he's going to go back to the old offensive line and say, hey, great job, because they're the guys up front that are doing all the work for him.
First and 10. Here's Corbett this time, and his yardage has been much harder to come by, but he still picked up 6 or 7. You know, sometimes you can say a guy gets a tough 100 yards, and sometimes you can get an easy-looking 100 yards, and I think Beresford's has been of the latter variety.
Well, that's right. I think if you take a look, anytime your secondary people are making a lot of the tackles on your defense, you know that, in fact, your people up front aren't playing very well. But, you know, if you just take a look again at Queens and McGill, all you see when the ball is snapped is a big surge of goals kind of go down the field. They're really getting off the ball much better than McGill are.
Robert Lando's in. He's a 300-pounder along the defensive line, and there's a pass dropped by the receiver, number 9, Rob Kennedy. I was talking about Robert Lando. He wears number 61 on defense for McGill, and 300 pounds might be a conservative estimate.
Big guy.
I think he's a player, too.
See, that little cast would add a little more weight as well to him.
Might get lost as well. Jock Flybe's 5th punt of the game, as opposed to his counterpart that's punted 14 times. Flybe into the wind, keeps it low and short, and that's where Tifo brings it out for a return of 6, and with 1:06 to play in the 3rd quarter, the McGill Redmen have the ball, but that's about all they have going for them right now.
Well, number 3, Jock Flybe, and 4th-year player for Queens, a law student. Michael, his dad was the captain of the Queens Golden Gaels in the 1968 Vanier Cup. So there's quite a tradition here for the Flybe family in Kingston, Ontario.
The Sky Dome, of course, will be the home of the Vanier Cup this year. And Queens feels as though it's got a shot at going there. And why not? They're undefeated. As you watch Tifo gain 3 or 4, it'll be 2nd and 6.
Let's go back to what you were saying. There are guys that have easy 100-yard games, guys that have difficult 100-yard games. You can just tell the difference. You know, I bet if you go in the locker room after today's game, you look at Beresford for Queens, he's not going to have very many bumps or bruises. But you take a look at Mark Tifo after today's game, he's going to have a lot of welts. He's going to be a little bit of pain probably, because all of his yards have been very, very tough yards to gain today, because really Queens have not given very much.
So your afternoon can be directly, or excuse me, inversely proportional to the number of bruises you have.
I guess so.
Queens gives us a different look this time, and now the linebackers come late, and there's a completion over the middle. Yenny Prefontaine to number 30, Paul Roman, who makes his 2nd reception of the day. And that would be the final play of the 3rd quarter. 3rd quarter that saw Queens go into the wind and play it relatively conservatively. No worse for wear. They scored once, and they lead it by a score of 28-0. And we'll see what Prefontaine and the McGill Redmen can do when we see the 4th quarter here in O-Q football in homecoming day. And this goal's going somewhere. I don't think it's home. You hear that drumming in the back? It's all coming from this one guy. It's the war chant of the Queens Golden Gaels. First play of the 4th quarter in what is being all Queens. Draw play to Wally Sordo. And Sordo runs into 3 aggressive Queens tacklers. Mike Boone, I think, the most prominent on that. and he limits the game to 3. It'll be 2nd down and 7. Very well-behaved crowd. You know, there are a lot of people here. It's homecoming day, and yet it's been nothing but fun so far.
Homecomings are always a lot of fun, especially with today's weather. You know, it would have been so easy for a lot of people to say, yes, I bought a ticket, but it's cold out and it's raining out. But boy, that hasn't deterred this crowd whatsoever. They stayed, and the game is a little bit what you might call a rout right now, 28-0, but everybody's still firm in their seats over on the student side and savoring the moment.
3 receivers this time to the right. First time McGill has showed us this. And Prefontaine looks back to the left, and he's got a completion to Courtney Shrimpton, who fumbles the ball, but out of bounds. And we'll get a treat, I believe, on the next possession of Queens. We'll see the number 2 quarterback in Queens, Ed Kidd, who is about as highly regarded as anyone in this country.
Well, McGill decide they're going to load everybody on the right side, then they come back with Courtney Shrimpton just doing a little out on the left. And a good lick there on Courtney Shrimpton by Andy Day.
1st and 10, 2 straight first downs for McGill. This is a reason to be excited for them. It's the first time that they put back-to-back first downs together. Needed a win in the 4th quarter. Here comes the rush and a screen, and it had a chance to work if it would have been completed. Mark Tifo had some blockers and some room, but didn't have the ball.
Well, McGill's showing a little bit more diversity in their offensive attack right now in terms of how they're throwing the football. They're doing some things that are actually pretty good. They're taking people straight down the field, and they're dropping Roman in underneath. They're loading up people on the right-hand side, going what they call a trips formation, putting 2 receivers out there, then they're coming back to the weak side with Shrimpton on the out. Those kind of things. They're trying to isolate people and get mismatches, so you have Shrimpton against a linebacker and this type of stuff.
Of course, the biggest mismatch, says Charlie Bailey today, has been us against them. No contest so far, 28-0 for Queens, but McGill does have a little something going here. 2nd and 10. Prefontaine throws and overthrows Luke Tifo, who was again well covered, this time by Chris McCormick. So your advice was stay away from Zaricki, go over to the other side, but it's not a whole lot better.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job as well. I think it's the key, though, to playing defensive secondary a lot of the times is having a good pass rush. If you can get pressure on the quarterback, so much easier. As we see Ed Kidd taking a few snaps from center. We're going to see him in the football game. One of the most highly recruited quarterbacks in Ontario last year. And a great addition for the Queens Golden Gaels.
Chuck Pettipaw. So what's new? 15th punt of the game. Not his best. But if Pettipaw hustles down, there's an alert play by number 17, Courtney Trelevin. He saw Pettipaw coming down on the short kick, and he simply fell on the ball. And he gives Queens a first down at about the 20-yard line. Hope you're enjoying today's CIAU football action, and we invite you to join us a little bit later today from Calgary, when we'll see a round-robin competition between UCLA, Calgary, Penn State, and Winnipeg. We'll show you the consolation in the final. Make note of the time, 7:30 Eastern time after Sports Desk, and that is this evening. Hope you can join us.
It's great volleyball. I believe Penn State are NCAA champions, or have been in the last number of years, and a great competition.
Calgary's done well against American competition in the past, and certainly faced good competition with UCLA and Penn State. But here's our first look at big... No, it's not our first look at Big Ed Kidd. I was all set for the big build-up, and you see Tim Pendergast.
Oh, you just look down and I see Ed Kidd. He's still stretching down there on the sidelines. You can tell he's ready to get into the football game. And I think he wants to get into the game when at least he can run the offense, and not when it's down to about the 2-minute mark. I think he wants to get in there and throw a few passes and try to make some things happen.
Hargreaves maybe not entirely convinced that this game is out of reach. He's one of the tough guys to convince. I'm pretty well convinced. How about you?
Oh, I'm convinced as well. I think he's got his 100th victory pretty well secured right now.
2nd and 7. Pendergast throws, and he overthrows or underthrows, depending on who he was throwing for.
Well, it looks like he was throwing for Rod Kennedy going down and doing a little hook. But they obviously, as we say, weren't on the same page, and one of them got confused or mixed up.
And we'll see Jock Clowney kick. So far, the snaps that he's got from Mike Ross have been almost perfect. The first one was a little bit off to the side, but since then, Ross has given him good snaps, and McGill hasn't had the opportunity to block kicks as they have 6 times in the past. There's another good snap, and he's forced to rush this one. And Tifo fields it at his 50, and he's out to the 54 of the Queens Golden Gaels. And that's where McGill will begin. And who will the Redmen have at quarterback? We'll find out when we return. Now, you remember Rainbow Head, the guy who used to show up at all the sporting events and hold up the John 316 sign? I don't think these guys are from the same club.
I would have to agree with that assumption, Michael.
Some of the most creative hair colors and face colors that we have seen this year. No question about it, Queens may not have the best football team, but they do have the most creative thing.
They certainly do.
And we've just laid a challenge out for every place we go in the future. Here's Tifo, who, as you acknowledged before, has had a very tough afternoon. He's been battered and beaten. Yannick Prefontaine still at quarterback for McGill.
Well, you know, he's kind of in that catch-22 when Jerry Eiffel's been playing most of the year and Tifo's the backup. He wants to play, but I'm sure he'd like to play against somebody where at least he's getting some room to run the football and he's just not running into a brick wall of Golden Gaels every time he carries the football.
I like that. A brick wall of Golden Gaels. Just doesn't get sound to me. Unless you're...
Well, they call it, they call it the Gold Rush here. That's what they call it. The Queens Golden Gaels Gold Rush for the defensive line.
Wasn't that a pass rush of...
I think it's the old San Francisco 49ers.
San Francisco 49ers in the late 60s. And Masadi's, again, either overthrown or the pass was underthrown to Tifo. I'm not sure who he was throwing for, which never bodes well for a quarterback. I'm not sure where the pass is going. A difficult day for Prefontaine with only the 3 receptions. So McGill will kick it away again. What number is this for the kicker? 16 for Chuck Pettipaw?
I believe it is number 16. You know, Chuck Pettipaw really has to be one of the best field goal kickers around in the nation. We really haven't had an opportunity to see him.
Nice kick. Into the wind, and it forces Jovetic back to his 25. It brings it out to the 30. Now, I'm wondering, help me out here. We're only going to speculate. It won't be in the stats, but what's McGill's deepest penetration? I don't think they've been inside the 50-yard line of Queens.
I think you're right. I don't think that if they had been over center field, it's only been maybe once or twice in this whole football game. And you see Chuck Pettipaw just walking off the field, kind of hanging his head. He hadn't had a opportunity to really show what he can do in terms of kicking field goals today.
Tim Pendergast remains at quarterback, so we still have not seen Ed Kidd. And now Kidd comes in. Believe it or not. Just as he was going to snap the ball, Ed Kidd comes in. Let's talk about Ed Kidd. Every coach wanted him in the eastern part of this country, heavily recruited by everyone. And when Hargreaves got him, he was at a meeting with several other coaches, and they were talking about what position this fine athlete could play. And Sonny Wolf said, look, he could start at my secondary and be the best secondary member.
And boy, he's got a great secondary member there in Dan Murphy right now, so that's a very high tribute.
Dan McNally at 12 said, hey, he could be the best receiver I've ever seen. And Chris Flynn, at Halifax's coach, Larry Utek, said he could be another Chris Flynn. Now, I don't think the parallel is exactly there. He's a lot bigger than Flynn and more of a traditional passer, but he's about 6'2". He's got great speed, and they say that if he does not play quarterback next year, if he can't unseat Pendergast, then he'll play a receiver.
Well, I'm sure Doug Hargreaves is obviously very pleased at having an athlete of his caliber. Now, I saw him play earlier this year in an exhibition game against U of T, and he rallied Queens. They were down 15-0, and he came into the football game and rallied them and threw a touchdown pass with 4 seconds left to go in the game. They were just trying to work into field goal position, but he went for broke and threw the out, and right on the money, and the 2 U of T defenders collided, and then the receiver took it all the way down the field, and that was the difference in the margin of victory. So he really is a great competitor, and you know, not taking anything away from him in terms of his movement, but he can move.
Now, you're a windsurfer. You ever windsurfed on that kind of board?
No, and I don't think I'd like to either.
Fun day here at Queens. Jack Flammy quickly closing on Chuck Pettipaw. Flammy's 7th punt, Pettipaw to his 16. Here's a kick that kind of spiraled on its side, but it gave Tifo plenty of trouble. And there's good coverage and a penalty. He fielded it at the 35. They're going to get a 10 or 15-yard penalty on top of that. So McGill, team that's had bad field position all day, is now going from bad to worse. Stay with us. We'll return in a moment. Queens Golden Gaels came out in their first possession. They ran on the field. McGill never really seemed to be into this football game, and we've seen that on the scoreboard. It has been all Queens so far. They lead it by 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdown passes by Pendergast, 2 to John Climby, 1 to Reed McGruer, and the run by Beresford, and that's where we are.
Well, I'm sure Doug Hargreaves is actually pleased with how his team has played, because he really hasn't had to show a lot. He's done very basic things on offense, and he's just really run their offense. They haven't shown any gimmicks or gadgets or any of those type of things that they might want to use in next week's game. But if they can just run their base offense and base defense and play like this, there's really no need for gadgets.
McGill will have to find a lot over the course of this week if they're going to have any chance to win next week. It should be noted that they are missing several key players, defensively and Jerry Eiffel in the backfield, but you never know what kind of difference those players could make. But my first instinct is that it's still not going to be enough.
Now, I think Queens are a superior team. Not only as football players, but athletically, they have some really talented people playing for them this year. And
draw play that was not well disguised. You could see that one coming from a long distance. Mike Zinga, the ball carrier, but he loses a couple. Gavin Hicks right there to make the stop. So it'll be 3rd down and long. In comes Czech Pettipaw, who knows this route well. Only a kicker could be in on 17 plays and still have a totally white uniform.
As we look at Chuck Pettipaw, can you remember the 2 biggest field goal, or the biggest field goal he ever kicked in his career?
I do, in the Atlantic Bowl, 42-yarder.
No time left on the clock to win it.
And there's you got to admire Jovetic running up and trying to make the shoestring catch, but he just wasn't able to execute it. And McGill gets the turnover, but they're still not over midfield. They've only been over midfield once. And this is...
Well, Jovetic trying to make a shoestring catch right off his hands. Obviously, a little bit out of control there, or a lot out of control, I should say. And
well, earlier you said to him, you said, look, you got to field those balls. And he let a ball drop. And Jamie Bones, with all his authority, said he's got to catch those. So he goes out and tries to catch it.
But there's always a word that covers you for that. You always have to say, use good judgment. Okay, and I don't think he used particularly good judgment on that play. But you got to admire his aggressiveness. He's playing hard. He's not trying to slack off at all, and wants to go for the big catch.
Tifo and Masadi wide to the right. I'm not sure who's at quarterback. Difficult to see his number from here. Looks like Andy St. Louis, and he throws the screen pass to Zinga, who breaks 1 tackle, and then goes out of bounds to the 45-yard line. In Ontario, a most important game between Western and Guelph. They are now at the half, and it is Guelph leading Western 14-8. Now, Guelph lost the 1 victory. They forfeited the 1 win because they played with an ineligible player. If Guelph wins that game, what happens in Ontario?
Western second, and I think we have to wait and see what happens between Toronto and Laurier today, and also, I believe, between Windsor and McMaster. So for Guelph, they can either finish in first or all the way down to 3rd. I believe Western can only finish first or second.
But right now it's Guelph by 6. We'll try to keep you posted. 5:30 to play in our football game. So they're about a quarter behind us. Wally Sordo finds his most running room of the day and spins around and picks up a first down. And yes, folks, this is the deepest penetration by McGill.
You know, Wally Sordo, a very tough running back. He was a very highly recruited athlete as well at St. Thomas More High School in Hamilton when he was a freshman, or graduating out of high school, and chose McGill. And kind of sat behind 2 running backs for a few years, Jerry Eichel and also Michael Scholes, and really didn't get a lot of playing time. They played him at slot back a little bit. He went in when they ran power I formation. But unfortunately, when Scholes is gone, they lost a lot of the key people on their offensive line, guys like Bobby Galvin and Denny Champagne, some key people from that 87 Vanier Cup team.
That's Masadi, number 75 in motion. He has not made a catch. Early movement by the right guard, who happens to open up the biggest hole of the day, but I guess when you move 3 seconds before anybody else, you're going to do it. I think it was Peter LaRusso, who charitably, I guess you could say, got out of there in a hurry. Number 53, the right guard, is it? It's 54. They've made a change.
Can't quite see him jumping offside there, but he was down about 10 yards.
Duncan Carlisle, you could see him. Or I should say you could see him. I could see him, and everybody across the country could see him.
Oh, there we see him go, but we don't see how far downfield. I'm getting a lot of heat from the producer and the director, and I better keep my mouth shut here.
Which isn't necessarily a good thing for an announcer to do.
That's right.
4:22 to play in the football game. We hope you're enjoying it. We have Andy Saint-Louis hasn't really enjoyed his afternoon. He's still looking for his first completion. We've seen 5 quarterbacks today, so in terms of quantity, we've seen, I think, more than we've seen all year. Saint-Louis, Raymond, and Prefontaine have played for McGill. It's been Kidd and Pendergast for Kings.
Impressed by Queen's defensive line. You know, anytime you're coming in a pass block, the offensive linemen are also in and they're punching you in the chest and in the stomach and trying to control you. And the hard thing to do is to be able to put your hands up when the quarterback's going to throw the ball, because you know you're going to take that big shot in the chest. And some guys never had the presence of mind to do that, but Queen's obviously been coached very, very well.
Well, now they're changing quarterbacks on the go. That's Justin Raymond, who replaces Saint-Louis on 2nd down and 15. Raymond throws, and he is picked off by Dave Burley. And Burley brings it out close to midfield, so the deepest penetration of the day for McGill ends like most of the rest of them, and that is frustrating. 28-0, and the Redmen really haven't come close to scoring a point.
Well, the two Burley brothers, Mike and Dave, have been playing very well, but not a very good throw here by Justin Raymond. Dave Burley just steps in front of it.
I've heard you say a lot, off his back foot.
That's correct.
Off his back foot.
He doesn't have any of his weight. He's not transferring his weight from the forward. He's not following the ball. He's throwing it back, so he's fading away from the ball when he's throwing it. And you can't get any velocity or any accuracy on the football.
Here's Bruce Kidd, or Ed Kidd, excuse me. We haven't seen his first pass of the day, and we still haven't. He's been sacked twice. Now, why does a guy throw off his back foot like that? Is it the rush that's coming at him? I mean, my instinct would say, yeah, throw off your back foot. You don't want to lean into the guy that's coming at you.
Well, that's correct, and that does happen. That's why rush is so important. But the other thing, a lot of times the quarterback, when he sees a receiver about to make the break, he doesn't gather himself. And what I mean by that is that he doesn't get back and get his feet underneath him so he can have the proper weight transfer. So when he throws the football, he can't open his hips up towards the receiver that he's throwing to. A lot of times they end up getting all the weight on their back foot, and they cannot generate enough velocity to send the ball downfield.
Kidd throws the screen, and he overthrows Corbett. What a break! What a break! Corbett may go all the way. He just gets brought down by a sweater. And you referred to running back before as like a pinball going back and forth. Watch the ball on this one. Try to follow the bouncing ball. Off of Corbett, off the defender, and then back to Corbett.
Well, you've got to be lucky, and Ed Kidd's certainly lucky here. I mean, here's the ball. It's overthrown. It hits Weldon, and it bounces right back into Doug Corbett. And he almost breaks this one. I mean, he goes down the sideline, and they just managed to get a hand on his sweater to haul him down.
I guess depending on how you look at it, either when you're going good, or when you're going bad, it gets real bad.
That's right. Well, the other saying, it's better to be lucky than to be good, I guess. So.
Some anger there in the tackle by Scott Weldon, who was just all over the running back almost immediately.
Well, the frustrating thing for him is that he plays the screen so well, and then it turns into a very big play for Queens.
Somebody was offside. It was McGill that's offside, so this will go for naught. Steve Jovetic with his first carry of the day.
Well, Mr. Weldon coming in and saying hello.
Is that what players say when they make tackles like that?
A few times they do, but not quite as nicely as that. They use a couple of other different adjectives to describe their welcome.
I kind of forgot Jock Climbing. He lines up wide to the right. And let's see if Kidd looks for Climbing. He does. Climbing is open, and it is over his head. Climbing broke to the flag, and Kidd showed you his arm strength there. A little flick of the wrist, and he threw it 40 yards downfield.
And also his maneuverability. He steps up in the pocket nice, gets back a little bit of pressure, and he steps up and delivers the ball. Big guy and very strong.
Paul Kerr has 1 sack today. He's number 77. We've talked a bit about him, and that gives him 9, and he leads the O-Q. Kerr is the defensive end on the right side. And Kerr's the one who blocks that ball, and Kerr has had an active day. McGill defensively, I don't think can be too disappointed with its performance, considering Queens scored 2 early touchdowns, and since then it has been more lack of offense than anything. 2:17 to play in the Queens homecoming game. Jamie Galloway has a strong leg. This is his first field goal attempt of the day. They lined up once and they got the bad snap. Line of scrimmage is the 42, and his leg is plenty strong enough, but it's off to the side, and here's a fumble by Chambers, and he's able to go down on one knee and concede the single point. Galloway showed you a very strong leg, kicked it about 15 yards deep on the attempt from the 42. That makes it 29-0 with 2:09 to play in this football game, and the first of 2 straight meetings between these 2 football teams. This will force Queens into 4th place for sure. They needed a victory today, and they needed Carleton to win. And Carleton does not look like they're heading towards a victory, and McGill certainly doesn't look like they are. I'm sorry, I think I said Queens into 4th place. McGill will finish 4th. Queens will finish 1st. Some white jerseys on the field now. Everybody has white, but these ones are more white than the others. Some of the substitutes getting some playing time right now. First carry of the day for number 13, Rusty Martin. On the pitch from another white jersey, number 10, Justin Raymond. A rainy, cool, very typical of autumn in this area of the country. Temperature about 4 degrees Celsius. Fairly strong breeze blowing out of the north. .138 to play in counting.
What I want to know is, I look at all these fans over here. The score is 29-0. Why are they here? Most fans leave. These fans are staying right to the end, and I can only think it's got to be for one reason.
And what is that reason?
Obviously the goalposts.
Oh, do they do that? Is that a tradition?
I believe it is. I'm not sure. Well, I know when Queens played Western back in '79 in a game for the Yates Cup in Western, the Queens fans took Western's goalposts down and tried to take them back to Queens with them. They tried to stick them on the bus. Unfortunately, they could not get them on the bus, so they threw them in the Thames River, where the maintenance crew dug them out, and those are the goalposts that are still there to this day.
That's life in the CIAU, right?
That's it.
Get it back at all costs. Justin Raymond, and he takes a shot from behind, and that'll be rough play. They got the completion and the big hit, but it's going to be rough play, unnecessary, and it certainly looked like it in the lateness of that hit. Or the fans could be staying around for another reason. A rare shot at a Jamie Bone autograph on the way out.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Christian Masada here. Boom, does he ever take a hit? I mean, he knows he's going to get the hit. It's ball's hanging there.
3 years ago at McGill, I believe, they tore the goalposts down there. And did they get them back? Didn't get them back.
So
they did get them back.
So I think that's why the crowd is still staying here to take home a little memorabilia. But those goalposts are going to have to be back up here again next week as McGill rolls back into town.
You didn't make reference to my comment as to why some of them could be staying around. The Jamie Bone autograph football given away by Spalding each week.
I told you I've got writer's cramp, Michael. I couldn't sign that many footballs.
There's Justin Raymond sacked on the play. Let's see who gets the sack. Number 69 of the Queens Golden Gaels, Paul Bersante. I actually made reference to that because you and I have been here since yesterday, and you know a lot of people around here, don't you? A lot of familiar faces for you here at Queens.
Actually, it's interesting. I know a lot of players. When I was at Western, our program was very close with Queens because of Doug Hargreaves and the Larry Haler connection when they were both coaching down at Dalhousie. So I see a lot of people here. We've seen Peter Harrison, a former quarterback. I see Bob Wright just down here in front of us, another former quarterback for the Queens Golden Gaels back in the late 70s, early 80s. And John Lynch. I know all the quarterbacks. I don't know any of the defensive players. I just know the quarterbacks.
Second down and 13, and Raymond's pass is very nearly picked off by number 27, Joel Dagner. couple of things we'll take care of after the game. We'll select the TSN Turning Point, brought to you today by Converse, and we'll have the Passport International Automobile Player of the Game. And I would think the leading candidates would have to be on the offense, which is a lot easier to select. Probably Beresford and Pendergast and Jock Fleming. Defensively, it's been pretty well spread around. Randy Zarickney certainly impressed. And here's Chuck Petitpaw's kick. Chuck Petitpaw has kicked a few today. That was his 17th kick of the day. That might be the record. I'm not sure. I don't think they keep a record on numbers of kicks.
They might after this game.
Well, they might start with this one, right. Chuck Petitpaw is the standard. And try not to match it, I guess, is what every coach would say.
That's right.
21 seconds to play as the rain continues to fall. A little bit harder now. Difficult to see on your screen, but it is certainly falling. And we're going to see Ed Kidd throw the ball. And Kidd throws and completes it right to the McGill Redmen. He threw that one right into the hands of number 11, John Chalupka. But there is a penalty down. And there are only 14 seconds to play. And there's the cleanest jersey we've seen in a while. It'll be against the Queens Golden Gaels. They're still singing and celebrating and enjoying. And they may not get to play the final 14 seconds of this game. You can't see the crowd, but they have come over and they are ready to go on the field. And here they come. They're showing great restraint now. 14 seconds to play, which means there has to be at least one more play after this. Although I don't think anyone will be too disappointed if this is the final one. And they call it. And wisely, Raymond rolls the other way away from the crowd and gets a completion. 3 seconds to play, and here comes the crowd. And the officials would be well advised to simply call it, and call it a victory for the Queens Golden Gaels. 29-0 is the score. 3 seconds to play, and nothing's going to change that. And now they go after the goalpost. Yes, they have elected to end the football game right now. And we will interview the Passport International Automobile Player of the game, and if you could bet whoever it is, he'll be in a crowd. Stay with us. 29-0, the final score. Queens and Doug Hargreaves with his 100th victory of his career. You're looking at a whole lot of Queens fans and Paul Beresford. Paul, congratulations. You're the Passport International Automobile Player of the game.
Well, thank you very much. I'm trying to keep balance here, but guys, come on, back.
Okay, we'll see how good you are at crowd control as well as anything else. We might not be able to see it, but talk to us. Man. Paul, was this clearly your best day of the year?
Well, personally, I feel it's one of my best days, yes. But I'm really glad. I've got to attribute it all to my line. They're the best.
Paul, I think we'll do you a favor and congratulate you and say, why don't you go in and get safe?
All right, I think I'm all right now.
Okay, we'll keep going. Why don't you say hello to Jamie Bone?
Hello, Jamie. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
It looks like you have a little bit more breathing room now, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, was your game plan coming into today's game to run the football and establish it as opposed to throwing the ball?
Actually, our team set up, we established the pass first, and then that sets up the run. So it works like that.
Paul, what do you think? We saw a lot of signs saying we're going to the Skydome, we're going to the Vanier Cup. Do you think your team's good enough?
Well, personally, I feel we're going to take one game at a time and hopefully we'll make it there.
Do you have any desire to work security for the next game?
Well,
thank you, Paul. Paul Beresford is the Passport International Automobile Player of the game. Passport International Automobiles will award a $500 scholarship in the name of Paul Beresford to the Queens Golden Gaels Scholarship Fund. Our thanks to Paul for bearing with us and the crowd. Stay with us. We'll return after this. Welcome back to Richardson Stadium. It was an easy Queens Golden Gale victory. They scored 2 touchdowns early to Jock Fleming. They won it 29-0. Time now for the TSN Turning Point, brought to you today by Converse. What do you have?
Well, Michael, we're going to take a look in the second quarter, or excuse me, the first quarter, the second touchdown. You see Tim Prendergast, quarterback for the Queens Golden Gales, dropping back, and what he's going to do is he's going to throw a deep pass here to Jock Fleming, and watch a great reception Fleming makes here because Paul Chambers sticks his hands in there, but Fleming comes down with the reception, makes the score 14-0. That was the turning point in the ballgame.
And a cash donation to amateur sport will be made on behalf of TSN and Converse. Converse, the launch is on. Of course, the race is on now for the Vanier Cup, and Queens has sort of put its hat into the ring. They are still undefeated. They were ranked number 4 coming in. Clearly, they're not going to drop. What do you think of the Queens Golden Gaels?
Listen, I'm very impressed with them. We've heard a lot of talk about Jock Climby. I mean, he's a great athlete. We see him in action today. Very, very smooth. Obviously, the running game is really coming together for Queens now as well, with Beresford having 178 yards rushing. But the key to Queens, obviously, has been their defense, playing outstanding. And the interesting thing is, we talked about Mike Boone, Gavin Higgs at the beginning of the show. But in fact, they play so well together as a group, and I think that's really their strength.
I was thinking the same thing, when you look back and they shut out McGill, and you think about how they did it, really, there isn't one guy that stands out. In the secondary, it's probably Zarickny standing out simply because people are afraid to go near him, and when they test him, he's great.
Well, I'll tell you, it's really quite an accomplishment for Queens to shut out McGill. They haven't done it since 1966, when Queens beat McGill 30-0 at that stage. So really, this great rivalry has gone back since 1898. I mean, it's been a great game to see, lots of fans, lots of fun. I've had a great time here today.
Let's take a look at the O-Q standings, and you can see what we're talking about when we talk about next week's playoff game. Queens will finish first, undefeated at 7-0. Been a while since anyone did that in this conference. Now, McGill will finish 4th. We know that for sure. That even though they're tied with Concordia right now, Concordia is going to end up beating Carleton, but regardless, McGill would finish 4th anyway. So next week, it'll be Queens against McGill and Ottawa against Concordia. And even though Queens won this conference rather handily, undefeated, I think Ottawa would have a shot at them. Ottawa has a good football team.
I agree. And you take a look at the last 2 times both of those teams played. Now, let's not knock out Concordia. They seem to be coming on at the end of the season. They have to play Ottawa in Ottawa. It's going to be a tough game. But if Ottawa beat Concordia, they're going to be back here for the O-QIFC championship. Queens have beaten Ottawa twice this season. Very, very close games. And the toughest thing to do in football and in college football is to beat the same team 3 times in a row. Queens is really going to have their work cut out for them.
Paul Beresford would say there's something tougher than that. It's being interviewed on the field after a homecoming game. A very enjoyable afternoon. We hope you've enjoyed it. We've got more to come from Richardson Stadium in Kingston. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. It was easy. Queens won at 29-0, and they defeated the McGill Redmen, and that means that they will face the Redmen next week in the first round of the O-Q playoffs, a semifinal game. This is our final regular season broadcast this year. We'll do a semifinal game next week, and then we'll take you all the way through the playoffs. So the regular season's over in the O-Q. We'll end in Ontario today. The other 2 conferences are still going, but we still got a pretty good idea what we expect to see. Let's take a look, first of all, at the East, and would you agree in my statement saying nobody can touch St. Mary's?
Oh, I agree totally. Now, Acadia might be close. They can hang with them for the first couple of quarters, but 3rd, 4th quarter, really, it's all Chris Flynn and St. Mary's. I just don't see how anybody can beat them in the East this year. Now, we've done 2 games with St. Mary's against Mount Allison and Acadia. Very, very powerful offense. And I had to give the edge, a big, big edge to St. Mary's.
Okay, Ontario.
Well, let's take a look at it. We're looking at Guelph was defeating Western earlier today. I think, again, it's going to come down to that Guelph-Western Yates Cup game. The winner of that's going to go out and play St. Mary's. Not really, the winner really isn't going to be much of a winner if they have to go out and play St. Mary's, because that's going to be a tough game.
Okay, in the West, a number of strong teams. Probably the best balance we've seen in any conference.
Oh, it really has been. I mean, right now, the last games of the season, you've got 4 teams, actually, that are still in the running to make the playoffs. Saskatchewan, I believe, are in the playoffs no matter what. But now you've got Alberta, you've still got Calgary has an outside chance, and I'm not sure, but I believe UBC even has an outside chance of making the playoffs. A lot of funny combinations have to happen, but still, I would have to give the edge right now to Saskatchewan just because of the way they're playing. They're playing tough, good defense, and they've got an explosive offense. My edge would have to go to Saskatchewan.
So you like Saskatchewan in the West. You didn't pick an O-Q winner. I know you like Queens today, but you also like Ottawa.
To be honest with you, I think in the OUAA, and I know the people at home and at Western and all the people that I've coached there are going to really cringe when I say this. I think Guelph is actually the better team out in the OUAA this year. The reason for saying that is they have an experienced and a great quarterback in Mike Shoemaker, and I think he'll make the difference.
History has just been made. Jamie Bone predicting Guelph over Western in Ontario. We thank you for joining us today, and we invite you to join us later today on TSN. We'll have exhibition volleyball between 4 good schools.